And this is a meeting of the Southborough Planning Board. The Planning Board is now in session. The first item on the agenda is a discussion item, proposed zoning changes. Do you want to speak to this, Karina, or do you want me to?
I can tell you a couple of things I have, and then you can take it from there. I don't want to dominate it. One of the, I had three things to already start considering. And one was there's some verbiage in section 174-8.
Can you speak louder or
Oh, I'm
closer to
sorry.
your
Is that better?
microphone?
Is that better? Is that better?
Not really.
How about now? Is that better?
Yeah, I don't know.
Hold on, I'll turn it up over here. My phone. How about now?
That would yell.
Is that better?
Maybe like Garrett Morris and Saturday Night Live.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're quiet, but we'll all stop breathing and listen.
Okay, I don't know what's wrong with my microphone here. Okay, I won't talk too much tonight then. There's language about the 55 and over housing. There was a phrase that's supposed to be taken out of the use definition in a section 174.8(2)(b)(8), just for reference. Owned by a public or nonprofit community housing organization that had been determined years ago from prior town council that should be taken out. Then we have, if Shopsy is ever dissolved, we do have to remember that Shopsy is referenced throughout in some portions of the code that have reviewing as a reviewing body for example, major residential development. And then there was a request for adding retail sales and service which do not involve manufacturing on the premises, and including fitness and gyms, indoor athletic facilities into the industrial park zone, the residential A, and possibly the BV districts, based on some of the changes post-pandemic and the office space along Route 9 in those zones. And that's all I had. Just wanted to get that out.
Thanks, Karina.
You're welcome.
I had a couple other ADU. We're going to have to address that. The other thing that was back when the zoning rewrite was done in 2012 and our zoning was reviewed. One of the things that was recommended was to have planning board be the special permit granting authority on projects that required site plan review to streamline the process. So those two additions were so we're just trying to think of things that we may want to bring to either annual or sometime in the future. Mr. Stein.
No questions, thanks.
Ms. Houlihan.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, the select board came with a request to have a conversation around Route 9 and updating zoning there. So I think that some of the proposed, like the industrial park that I had mentioned around the including fitness and personal services in the industrial zone, industrial park zone, I think that we should also make sure the select board has we include the conversation. And I said I would be the conduit to be able to do that. So I know it's still premature and it's all kind of pertinent to MBTA passing, but I think starting those conversations to be able to bring to the town meeting, which I guess we're trying to shift anyway to accommodate the new laws with ADU. Thank you.
Ms. DeMaria.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to the topic of ADUs by right. So I attended the meeting of the APA-MA, which is Affordable Homes Act, American Planning Association, MA chapter, Zoom meeting, and found out a lot of information about what some of the towns are doing. The EOHLC is expecting to put out some additional information that is to help all the cities and towns in Massachusetts to be able to bring it to town meetings. So, it would be going to our next our annual town meeting. I did find out that some towns were already trying to put forward, or at least do some work on updating the definitions, which are pretty much set in the legislation, I think. But it will be a lot of work. And so I think, maybe think about putting together a small group or something that is going to maybe try to tackle that. Based on what I heard, and Mimi, you mentioned you'll be attending another Zoom information session tomorrow. There's a lot, in my opinion, there's a lot of sections of our code that will need to be updated. So it's just not on housing and ADUs. Obviously, we have a different definition. We use accessory apartments. It's not as simple as just updating that definition. There's opportunities for site plan and, also other parts to section 7 and 8 of section 5 of chapter 40. So I think it's quite extensive, but it's, if we can maybe think about after town meeting, starting up on that one, because I think it's going to be quite big. Thank you.
Ms. Brascio?
Nothing further to add.
I just have one thing on the industrial park, just a curiosity, and I'd like to understand is that with the new rewrite, they also didn't allow any of those uses. They updated all the uses, like the housing for the night watchman is gone, but they updated all the uses, but they did not allow those in industrial park. And I'm just wondering why that is. And I read all their comments and they didn't specifically mention that. So maybe I'll reach out to the prior chair, and he's a fountain of knowledge. Maybe he'll know why those were left off of industrial park. Perhaps they were expecting more intense, manufacturing commercial uses there, which wouldn't be compatible with, personal services or gyms, but I don't think we've really seen that, so.
Just one more comment. I do think like post-COVID, where office space is not being as utilized, like we have to be open-minded. And I think some of the definitions and the restrictions, the way that things are written are seriously like circa 1980. Like we do have to update just what we allow things and just have broader definitions.
Agreed. So this will be something we can work on moving forward.
I also want to mention there was a article that Leah Emerson, EDC coordinator, had given to planning regarding a report on sales in the 495 West, down 91% so far in 2024 as Metro West office landlords deal with vacancies. It was an interesting article. If anyone's interested, let me know if you didn't receive it. Thanks.
Anyone else on that? Anyone on Zoom? Okay. The next item on the agenda is a discussion item, 120 Turnpike Road, 40B. I think just an update on this, not really much to discuss. Their last meeting was September 4th, and the peer review had just come in that night, so it wasn't really an opportunity to discuss it. Just as a side note, I looked at it briefly, and it's a lot of things that the planning board had written in our letter. And the next hearing on that is October 8th. Anyone else have anything on that?
So in the September 4th Land Design Collaborative peer review, they reference the waiver for site plan approval. But they mentioned safety. Does anybody know what that's, where that stands with the ZBA? Are they going to grant the waiver? Are they going to?
So they had just received that peer review right before they walked into the meeting, so it wasn't really discussed. So I expect it will be discussed on the 8th. So there was a lot in there about the blanket waivers and having reasons for waivers being requested. But that wasn't discussed.
Okay, so there's a number of waivers actually in here, including lead that, okay, so this is preliminary. Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Anyone else?
Maybe
Yes, ma'am.
oh, go ahead.
I'm Freddie Gillespie, Chair of the Open Space Preservation Commission. We haven't had a chance to look at the peer review since it was just issued, but I had a question. I was hoping I could get maybe your perspective on issues that the Open Space Preservation Commission raised previously, and we don't have a clear understanding, and maybe you can explain to us what your understanding is. Because we keep asking about we thought there was a site plan modification still required, because we know the building got moved, but we thought they're not building there, but the layout of the land and some of the activities on the land is different from the current recorded site plan, and that would in fact require a modification. And our questions were about how do you make plans to where you're going to build if that requires a modification? And then also the fact about the subdivision, I understand that they can do it concurrently, but they're asking for some of the waivers and some of the other considerations on land that's not the 40B parcel, but you don't even have a 40B parcel until you do the subdivision. And I was just hoping you might be able to clear it up, because we haven't gotten an answer when we've asked at the ZBA. So is it your understanding, I guess I'll make it simpler, is it your understanding we don't need a site plan modification for the existing layout that's there proposed now? That maybe the buildings in a parking lot for the office buildings, might that need one? But how do you move forward without one? But I'm more, actually, we don't care about, I shouldn't say we don't care, it's not our jurisdiction about that area. We're concerned about the open space parcel, and the fact that much of the open space parcel as proposed is not only not in the same area, but it's not only denuded of trees. The plan is to have no landscaping there because it will be a steep slope with big rocks and also open swales with stormwater. Why would you put that on open space that the town owns? So I guess that's two questions.
So eventually a site plan modification will have to be done on the lot that has the office buildings on it. Town council has opined that the 6.2 acres is close enough to the decision of the 2019 major site plan approval, so that doesn't require modification. And all, as far as what's on the open space, will have to be decided through the zoning board of appeals.
So you're saying there's no input from site plan or planning board on the fact that it won't be 6.2 acres because we're going to be getting steep sloped rocks and drainage swales, which would never be part of an open space parcel that I've ever been aware of that we would accept as a town. So it's less than 6.2 acres.
I'm not saying there won't be input from the planning board.
Won't require a site plan modification to make it less than 6.2 acres.
Can I just mention, at the I think, the planning board, sent a letter, just for everybody's knowledge, to the ZBA dated August 20th, 2024. And I was able to, read just sort of the highlights to the ZBA, and to the body, at their meeting. I believe it was maybe August 21st. No, I can't remember. But we list in our letter that the top priority is the conveyance of the 6.2 acres. And made it clear that it's an enforceable condition and it's not contingent on the approval of the 40B comprehensive permit. At the end of the night, it seemed that the proponent didn't want to listen to that and said that the ZBA would be responsible for that. And, maybe this is all just semantics, but I think that the planning board's made it clear that this parcel is now kind of being used as sort of a, little bit of a football or something. It's kind of getting tossed around. I continue to remain concerned. It was originally intended to be a gift to the town. We know that when Ferris Development took a look at that property, that the permit hadn't expired. And we know that there has been a number of lawyers that have looked at that property and they knew that that was a gift to the town. So although, I remain impatient, but town council has said that will definitely be a gift to the town. What I would want to make sure is that they're not able to use anything under that land and they're not able to use anything above that land. So I share some of the concerns that Freddie just mentioned, but in a different sense, is that as kind of the, as a member of the planning board, this was a condition. And I really think that we need to be vigilant and make sure that it's, goes seen to fruition. I don't know how that's going to happen because I'm not sure exactly when these conversations will occur. And at ZBA, not that many conversations have occurred. So I think that there's still more opportunity to have this dialogue. And I continue to say that the planning board should have a seat at the table with the ZBA and continue to post agendas so that we could convene and give them our collective advice when they meet and when they're discussing the topics. Thanks.
Anything else? Anyone in the room? Anyone on Zoom?
Mimi, this is Karina over here. I have a couple comments. We did receive at the planning department a letter from Paul Carter, resident at 6 Hillside Ave, with a list of comments and some sketches, which was distributed to the planning board members and also to provided to the ZBA, and I think they have it on their website as well. I just want to make that clear. That was on September 4th. So we don't forget that we had that resident input. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is a discussion item, 250 Turnpike Road 40B. Just an update. I think the zoning board is awaiting new plans with the townhouse layout. The next hearing is scheduled for October 8th, and I don't have anything else on that.
Has there been any response from Mass Housing to the letter that was sent on September 6th? From the planning department? Yeah, it was sent, it's in the packet to Catherine Miller. Karina, do you know the letter I'm talking about?
I don't. Is that an old letter?
Well,
Accidentally?
oh, you're right. I had the year wrong.
That's
Sorry.
okay. That's all right. If it's in your packet, it's
I'm
there
only
by
a year
mistake.
late on that one. Never mind. Sorry.
Okay.
Hard to keep track of all these things.
Anybody else have anything on that? 250? Anyone online?
Mimi, did we get a letter from a resident on Skylar Drive about 250 and the setbacks? Mr. Davis?
We did.
I wonder
yes.
if Karina that came in, I think, just recently, or if Karina could maybe just summarize one of the neighbor complaints or concern.
Sure. Mimi, you want me to proceed on that?
Sure.
To say that? Okay. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right one. So let me see here. So on August 19th, there was an email from Mr. Mark Davis from 13 Skylar Drive. And it was regarding the 250 Turnpike Road 40B that's proposed, as well as comments on the contractors building for 250 Turnpike Road, which is part of public hearing that is on the agenda for this evening, which was continued to tonight. Let's see here. He maintains the current plan with the building on the zoning line with the, this is regarding the contractor's building. If you want, I can hold off on that piece until we get to that public hearing. Let me see what he says. I'm let's see here. On the 40B, he said, I guess their attorney and Ferris are discussing an MOU, memorandum of understanding. He has, however, I have expressed my conditions for the MOU and have not seen a draft, nor am I aware of recent conversations. I'm not aware if my conditions were receptive, and I can review those with the board at some point. The rest of the email is in regards to the contractor building, which again is slated for discussion at 7:10. And that's all I have. Does that cover what you were talking
set,
about, Debbie?
Mr. Maria?
Yep, thank you. Thanks,
Okay.
Dana.
Okay.
All right, nothing else on that. The next item on the agenda is a discussion item, the residents at Park Central 40B. The last hearing on that was, last week, 9/4, I believe, and the Zoning Board of Appeals, denied the application, and they will be writing their decision on September 20th. Any further comment on that?
Mimi, I'd like to just point out that the planning board also, as you recall, sent a letter to the ZBA regarding the residents at Park Central, suggesting and recommending that, let's see here. That the extension, that they recommend that the extensions to the project should not be continued. It was a very brief letter dated September 4th, but it was provided to the ZBA Chair, David Williams, in that regard, with planning board's opinions on that from the last meeting on August 19th.
Yes, and that was referenced at the meeting.
Okay. Sorry, I'm discombobulated here. Okay, thank you.
So we have a few minutes
So
before.
administrative,
Sure.
what time are we meeting for pre-town meeting on September 30th?
Hold
6.
on.
We have a room yet by any chance?
We've requested one. It hasn't been assigned yet.
So Jesse, just to clarify, the process is, town clerk Jim Hegarty, send out an email saying, we're going to start taking reservations for pre-meetings for the special town meeting on September 30th, which, starts at 7, but usually the planning board meets an hour beforehand. It's going to be at Trotter School, so, we will let Jim Hegarty know that we definitely want a room and that we'll be posting a meeting. And then he'll reserve a room for us, tell us which one it is, and then we can put that in the posting for that meeting at 6 p.m. on September 30th.
Yeah, another administrative item. Sorry, does anybody else have any questions on that? Another administrative item, on October 21st, there's going to be an agenda item that Mimi is going to recuse from, right? Karina?
Yeah, tentatively right now, we're in the process of reviewing, some revised as-built for Stonebrook Village subdivision off of Oregon Road.
You'll you'll lose Miss Braschi on that one too.
So that's really, thank you for mentioning that. So quorum situation, okay.
is important, and as of yet, I'm in the process of, looking over the revised submittal, which I'm going to be sending to Fuss and O'Neill for the, follow-up review, which will hopefully be a final review of the as-built information. And the target is for October 21st Planning Board meeting. That's the goal. But I will keep you posted as to, where that project stands so that you can be prepared for that meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mimi, can I ask an administrative question while we're talking about next meetings? So our scheduled meeting was the 30th, which is town meeting. So technically, unless we schedule something else, this is our last meeting prior to town meeting. Are we considering meeting again prior to town meeting, or are we just going to leave the schedule as it is?
So maybe that'll be, you know,
In the next discussion.
because I think, we'll know during the next agenda item. Yeah.
Fair enough. Thank you.
So Lisa, if I
Thank you.
may-
Now it's, oops,
No,
go ahead, Karina.
Oh, Lisa, if I may, usually we hold the public hearings open till the end of the pre-town meeting, the planning board's meeting right before the town meeting. Is that what you were asking? So usually the planning board continues the public hearings to that evening, the pre-town meeting.
No, Karina, I did understand that. I just didn't know, typically in September, the planning board has 2 scheduled meetings, and technically there's only 1 at this point. So I was just trying to figure out whether planning board intended to add another meeting, but I guess my question's been answered by Jesse. We're gonna wait and
Oh,
see
There
how
is
the
this-
next item goes on this.
September 30th is a meeting. It's on the schedule.
Yeah.
It is,
For a
but that's
regular
town
thing.
meeting now, so.
Yeah, we always call it the pre-town, but it is on our planning board schedule of meetings. We always-
Correct.
We carry one. Okay, all right. I guess
Thank
I'm
you.
not understanding. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Now it's after 7, so we can start this hearing. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing, NBTA Communities Overlay District Zoning Amendment. And we welcome the Select Board and the Advisory Committee.
I'm calling the Select Board to meeting to order at 7:02 on September 9th, 2024. 4 out of all 5 are here. To specifically discuss Article 8 on the draft warrant for the September 30th special town meeting with the Planning Board and with the Advisory Committee.
And I'm not sure if we have anyone online. Colleen, can you see from advisory? Would be Adam Nodiff, Larry Sandberg. Well, the 4 of us here, so we have quorum here at least. So I'll call advisory committee meeting to order at 7:04 PM.
Good evening, Doug Mans, Chair of the SHOP-C Committee. We actually have 3 members attending tonight on this same matter. So Jesse, myself, and Al. I think a couple of them may show up, but right now we do have a quorum too, 3 out of 5. Oh, Paul. Oh, he's walking in? Perfect. So we have 4 out of 5. So thank you. I'll call SHOP-C's meeting order as well. Thank you.
Do you all want to come up front? So we can have a discussion? No? Huh? So welcome. So first, we're going to start with the brief presentation.
Mimi, before you do that, I would just like to bring up the topic that Jesse Stein has filed a Mullins form with the town clerk. indicating that having missed the meeting, the public hearing on August 19th, that he reviewed all the information as required and has gotten up to speed on what was discussed at that meeting. So
Yes, thank you, Karina. I did review the meeting on YouTube. I viewed the entire agenda item and you viewed all the materials. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so unless the board thinks otherwise, I thought would do the PowerPoint presentation, go over the bylaw and accept any changes because the select board needs to vote on that tonight. So as soon as we can get through that.
Mimi, can I just,
Sure.
so I checked with other people back here. We're having trouble hearing Karina clearly. So
Yeah.
I don't know how much she is going to say as far as this goes. If it's not much, it doesn't matter. But if she is going to say a lot, I don't know what can be done, but it really is hard to hear her back here.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I do a quick test? Can you hear me better if I change the volume on my mic? Can you hear me? Can you hear me
No,
now?
you're very,
Silent, quiet?
yeah,
How about now?
a
How
little
about
better.
now? That's better, a little better? All right, well, I won't say much unless somebody asks me, because I think Mimi and has all the information and the planning board members. Sorry.
And then questions and comments. We need to assign somebody to do the presentation at town meeting. We also, I don't know if we want to, and we can discuss this at that time, think about frequently asked questions. And then perhaps another planning meeting prior to town meeting. Okay, Colleen.
I think I volunteered to present this and will do so at town meeting.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. For those in attendance, the draft bylaw is on this desk right in front here if people want a handout. So this is a brief presentation and we're allowed or allotted 5 minutes at town meeting and it's pretty strict. So any recommendations on information that's not contained in this presentation that you think would be helpful would be appreciated as feedback. So first and foremost, what is the MBTA Communities Act? In 2020, the Zoning Act was amended by the Massachusetts legislation to promote the production of multifamily housing within walking distance of public transportation to address our severe housing crisis. The new law, which is MGL 40A 3A, an MBTA community, is an as-of-right law that we are required to pass by town meeting before December 31st, 2024. And we'll get into why. So the next slide is the key components of the MBTA law. So there are 5 key components. The first is for Southborough, 50 total acres. Importantly, many other towns have 100 total acres because our tracks are right on the border of Hopkinton and Southborough. We successfully negotiated to move from 100 acres to 50 acres, so that was a big win. 10 acres of the 50 acres must reside within a half mile of the MBTA station. Walking distance to public transportation, bikeways, and bus stops is a second criteria. The third is it must be suitable for families with children. So these as-of-right dwellings cannot have any bedroom restrictions or age restrictions. Zoning must allow a minimum gross density of 15 units per acre within these MBT communities. And the zoning permit process cannot be discretionary. So it's important that multifamily is buildings designed for 3 people or more dwellings. Next slide, please. So the key components are 3. So what it means to Southborough. In the 50 acres, we have about 10 acres within a half mile of the MBTA station. 25 acres, which is 50% of them must be contiguous, so they must all be together. And then there are 15 acres that can be in 3 5-acre districts. And so you'll see that we've proposed 5 areas, 3 districts. 750 units must be the minimum total unit capacity that Southborough contributes to the housing crisis, and our MBTA Communities Act. And site plan review would still happen. So while this is a zoning bylaw, it's not a mandate to build bylaw. This is a zoning bylaw, and our site plan review, which the planning board has discretion, still applies. And so those bullet points will still be applicable for anybody trying to build as of right. The next slide, please. So it's important to note that the planning board did conduct several public outreach sessions. And this really has happened since maybe July of 2023. And since then, I'm not going to read all of these, but we've held multiple public outreach sessions. We've held mapping sessions. We've held subsequent mapping sessions specific to the area around the train station. We've worked with Bowler for the grant application and through the grant application to be able to understand the modeling. We've worked with other town departments and committees to be helpful. This is what has come out of multiple sessions working with the public, is what we're putting it forward for the town. Next slide, please. So this was originally on the annual town meeting in March, and it was withdrawn, and there were reasons for it being withdrawn. I'm not sure we need to really get into that slide, but at the end of the day, it gave us an opportunity to review the model that the state put together, which was erroneously read by the consultants that were hired and trained by the state. And so it gave us quite a bit of time to work with them to figure out a next path forward. Importantly, where you see the red arrow, you can barely read it, but essentially the model reported that we were meeting the unit capacity, and in fact, we weren't. So we needed to withdraw that from the town meeting. And now we've worked on that since March to be able to bring forward this in special town meeting warrant article number 8. So the state compliance model is complicated. What's important is that we do have a state compliance model that meets compliance standards. And in that, we have 828 total units of the required minimum of 750 that we have to achieve as a town within those designated areas, which we'll be going through. 59.2 acres of the required 50 to meet the MBTA requirements. And we have 12.9 acres within the station area of the required 10. So based on all of those factors, we achieve compliance within the very complicated model, and we achieve the zoning requirements to be able to pass this by right. So let's talk a little bit about the districts overlay on our map. We have 3 areas. We'll talk from the top of the chart is area number 3. Moving to the middle is area number 2, and area number 1 is right around the train station. So let's talk a little bit about District 1. So District 1A and 1B is the area that contains within the 10 acres within the half mile of the MBTA station. That District 1A is highlighted in pink. That's an area that is neighborhood area of Blendon Woods and on Woodland Road. And District 1B follows the path of Southville to the east of the station. For more detail, those are the exact addresses. And that achieves 6.1 acres in District 1A. In District 1B, we achieve 6 acres, which is inclusive of 30 Southville Road. Again, area east to the train station. The next area that we are putting forward on town floor is for District 2, which provides 29.5 acres. As you recall, 25 acres needed to be contiguous. And these include the 300, 302, 304, 334 Turnpike and Madison Place. And District 3 The final district, the most northern part of Southborough, achieves 14.6 acres and is located at 34 St. Martin Street. So the planning board has complied with the MBTA law by putting forward this zoning article for which the town needs to provide a 50% approval to pass. One thing that's not in this slide deck are the consequences if we do not pass this. And we do lose out on grant funding. There's an opportunity, potential opportunity that civil cases can be drawn by developers who wish to build leveraging the MBTA Communities Act. And without passage, there are implications. And I think that one slide we should probably pull back into the deck. I think that would be important for people to understand. And that concludes the presentation. If there are any other questions, we're happy to address those.
And since my fellow Shopsy members are here, it's not in the slide deck, but I just reconfirmed with Karina earlier today that within the bylaw, there's a requirement that any multifamily housing with 5 units or more as a deed restriction requirement, that 10% of the units be affordable, as defined as the occupants being at or below 80% of area median income. So, Karina, sorry to call on you, but one thing I forgot to ask you earlier, that would be on the DHC, those units would become DHCD inventory recorded. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Okay.
Yes, correct. They would meet the,
That was the Shopsy part, and
Yeah.
Shopsy met a few days ago and voted to support this warrant article.
Thank you. Anyone else on the board?
I think that's a great presentation, Marnie. I just wanted to let you know that you're at about 8 or 9 minutes. Very, very hard on zoning to try to get it down to 5 minutes. But I think one suggestion I might make to the presentation would be, I think a lot of people know that the state got it wrong and we had to withdraw. Possibly they might not, but maybe we can just speak to that and not show that slide about, it's complicated and it's we just have to move forward. One of the things that I get asked about all the time is, well, how did you choose those lots? And I think it's really important that we put up a slide. I think we might have had one, Colleen might have made one that said, right, what are the factors that we used in coming up with the lots? It would be good to put that one in. Thanks.
Ms. Brascio?
So I know, excuse me, the moderator likes 5-minute slides, presentations, but I think in this case, this is a pretty big deal and it's hard to fit it in. And Marnie, I think everything you said, town meeting needs to hear. So Mimi, I would suggest we reach out to the moderator, and he's done it before. Ask that he give additional time, whether it be 10 minutes, because this does have a huge effect on the town. And again, he has done it before. So I think it's worthy of a question. Thank you.
Isn't there like a pre-town meeting coming up? Okay,
17th?
yeah, so.
Yes, sir.
Howard Rose, 2 Bantry Rose, a member of advisory speaking as a citizen. I understand you're addressing this as only the overlay that you've addressed to, but what you haven't addressed anywhere is what this is going to do to the town. And I know perhaps, but as planning, that is part of your purview, is what this does to the town. There's no mention of traffic or what it does to the schools or the additional police or anything else that's going to affect this town. No one has addressed, is this good for the town? I know you've taken a stance that the state has required this law, therefore you must put it forward. But I'm curious if anyone thinks this is good for the town and how you would vote on that. And for the select board that's here, same thing. Are we going to, are you going to support this? Just because the state has asked for it doesn't mean it's good for the town. Our purview on our boards is what is good for Southborough, not what's good for the state and for the governor and their convenience. So I ask you to consider that is our purview and your purview, is this good for Southborough? 16 other towns have already said no and rejected it. I'm still baffled why we are going through with this and not joining those other 16 towns and saying, this is a disaster for our town and we should not be going through that.
So,
Board as well.
so feasibility, we've had many, many discussions and gone back and forth on the fact that we have no sewer, all the items
Other
you
things,
listed,
yeah.
Howard. The reason that I'm not going to speak for any other planning board members, but it seems like this is the best path, given the circumstances, that it's a state law. And if we don't do what we can control in terms of mitigation, we will possibly end up with a far worse scenario in the future. I think we did.
But this is a scare tactic the states use. The only, in the law, and if you read it, the only penalties are those grants, which I think we only use 3 anyway. We lose some grants. There's no other penalties per the law. Now they can sue and those are in court. Why don't we say no and kick this down and see what the courts say about the other?
Because of the possibility of a developer using it as leverage to do higher density, higher height.
Not in the law. That's not one of the penalties of the law. So that is I think that's a fallacy.
Well, so if you read the Milton case, that is one of the areas of relief that the Attorney General from the state of Massachusetts has asked.
But again, the Milton case hasn't.
So it has to play through, but
Right.
if it plays through and we haven't passed it, we could be vulnerable.
So-
The other thing, well, so let me just finish.
Please.
There've been numerous studies done on the effect of multifamily housing on schools, and it's found to be minimus. I can send you all the links. MAPC just did one.
But you're adding 900, you're adding a
I'm
third to
not-
our town.
So we're not adding anything, it's zoning. And we were careful that it takes place over time. And there's a housing crisis in Massachusetts and across the country. Our master plan, one of our major goals was diversification of housing. It seems that the single-family zoning has contributed to the expense of housing in the Commonwealth and across the country, and having a diversity of housing stock could help. So yes, it's something that is good for the town.
And I'm not against the diversity housing. I'm getting the buy right and the loss of control. And that's what we're giving up.
So we're taking what control we can.
Respectfully, I disagree, and I hope the select board will join me in that. And I hope town meeting, more importantly, will join me in that. What I would be careful about, though, is the scare tactics that the state has been using of all the things that could possibly happen, because they're really limited, and that's not a fair assessment. But thank you.
We'll see, anything can happen in court.
Just one comment. Thank you for your comment. I wanted to just mention, and now, of course, it escaped my mind. Oh, the towns that said no did take it to town meeting. So they had their town meeting vote on it first. So that's our obligation as your planning board, is to bring it to town meeting for the town to vote on.
Mimi,
Well, they've got to bring it to town meeting like they're doing.
Yes, ma'am.
So Kathy Cook, Chair of the Select Board, and I am speaking as a member of the Select Board, not as a private citizen. So can we go back to the presentation for a moment? These are just suggestions, Marty, as far as what you may want to do. We will reiterate Lisa's request that Paul allow you whatever time you need. This whole meeting's about this article, so whatever you need, you should get. And we will help get that done as far as that piece of it goes. So I don't think you should worry about the time and start timing it and trying to cut out 4 minutes. I can't believe that was 9 minutes, but everything in there except for one slide, I think should be there. And I think you should add a few things. I wouldn't put the slide in there about what happened in March. I don't think it's relevant at this point. I just take it, I wouldn't say a word about it either. It's just irrelevant. You're going to get sidetracked if you start talking about what Bowler did wrong, whatever. I mean, it's just, at that point, it's water under the bridge. So I wouldn't even bother with that to not give somebody a chance to get up and take that sideways. So I'd leave that out completely. It's not relevant at this point. I think you've got to be ready to talk specifically about what the penalties are as far as the grants go. Go back to what they started with, go back to what they're at now, and remind people that we are trying really hard to apply for a very significant one-stop grant next year that planning board, select board, et cetera, have agreed to do. Second, and now this is not on the table, but we've got a very significant grant that we are going to receive if the Neary School project goes forward. It's $30 million. So there are significant things the state could do if they choose to do. So I think you've really got to spend a little bit more time on what the consequences of not passing this is. Third, I think you need what Mimi said a minute ago, I think is really important, that you've tried very hard to designate areas where the impact won't be overnight. For example, you didn't designate the EMC property where you could have had an overnight impact. You've tried very hard to pick areas where you had to do them. You had to do the 10 acres around the train station, but you've tried to pick areas where the development would be gradual and not have a immediate impact on the town. I'm concerned about what Howard is too, but I do believe we've got this is a state law, and I'm not real big on not complying with state law. So the select board intends to vote after this night in public, so we can see how we voted, so we can get it into the warrant for tomorrow. I'm not sure what advisory is going to do tonight, but we are going to vote tonight to decide whether we're supporting this or not. So you'll see our vote, but I wouldn't worry about the time. You did, which there is good, but I'd add the piece about how hard you tried to make this as easy to implement as possible in this town and have a gradual impact and not this spike, because I think that will help a whole lot. For the town meeting audience to understand how hard you tried to make this work when you didn't ask for the law to be passed. We know we know one-stop shopping shouldn't have applied like it is, but it is the law at this point. And we do know that AG is very aggressive about what she's doing at this point. We don't know how these court cases, and what Mimi said a minute ago, or one of you said, is important. Every single town that has said no, it was brought to town meeting. No one didn't bring it to town meeting. So you're doing what everybody else has done that has voted it down. Okay.
Amy, can I ask Kathy a suggestion? Thank you for your comments, Kathy. I agree with March taking that and just bypassing it completely. But my question to you is, and I've been asked this by a couple people, and you have more of a direct line to town council than we do. A few people have said to me, they feel that bringing up the school and that specific grant isn't listed as one of the grants that can be held. Can you just verify that? It would be good to have that information for us prior to town meeting, is because again, you don't want someone to stand up and say, you're trying to scare people or there's no way. So again, just a question to Jay, if he thinks because it's not listed in the legislation, what grants they can hold, could that one potentially be held? That would be great.
Okay, I will find out.
Thank you.
Because clearly it's not on the list right now for sure. That would be consequential, so I will find out.
Lisa, we did get a email from town council. That's not on the list now, but in his opinion, he doesn't doubt that it could be, because the governor and the attorney general have made it very clear they've been trying to get municipalities to follow this law with carrots, and they will use sticks as they have to.
Mimi, I think it's also important in Milton's case, they did actually stop funding from a grant that wasn't listed in the ones that were. So obviously the court case will say what happens there, but they did choose to go outside of the ones they listed.
Okay, that's good to know, and that's good to know for
No.
town meeting. I didn't read what Jay wrote that way, Mimi, but I'll go back and read it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Andrew Dennington, Vice Chair of the Select Board, 10 Carolyn Terrace. And so I am speaking in support of the MBTA Communities Law. Yes, can you hear me? I wanted to speak in support of the MBTA communities bylaw and speak to a couple points I didn't hear mentioned. As elected officials, both select board and planning board, we're elected by the voters of the town of Southborough to advance our long-term and short-term interests. But I think that in evaluating those, you can't think strictly just within the borders of what's going on within the borders of the town, that we live within a broader community and our long-term interests are advanced by cooperating and participating in regional solutions to encourage the development of more diverse types of housing, particularly transit-oriented housing. I think it's significant that even in the changeover of the administration in the governor's office, this is a law that was supported, was a centerpiece of Governor Baker's agenda, and the new Democratic governor, Governor Healy, is also strongly supporting this as part of an effort to make Massachusetts, not just Southborough, a better place to live and to raise kids where they'll be able to afford a house and have a future. This bylaw is not a perfect law, but it is a modest positive step towards more diverse types of housing and a healthier economy. I think Southborough should be part of it. And I want to emphasize, even in just looking at the terms of the bylaw, how modest a step it is. I hope that when you show the map, people's fears that this will destroy the town or will fundamentally change the character of the town will be allayed. And I thought it was significant that in the dimensional restrictions of the bylaw, that in each of the 3 zones, there's the maximum height restriction is just 3 stories, correct? So if there is kind of misconceptions from people that this is going to lead to the construction of large apartment towers and the like, it simply doesn't. It does maintain a strong element of local control in terms of site plan review. In fact, more than I would like, but I think that I think this board has done a very good job of rolling up their sleeves and getting into the weeds and finding in a way that we can cooperate with these, with building more housing in the state, while also preserving the things that we like about the town. So I don't want Southborough to be part of the minority of communities that choose to willfully defy the law and fight this rather than support this. I think the right choice is to take a positive view and to cooperate with it. I hear nothing positive in terms of solutions to improve our long-term housing problems from the group of communities that are leading the fight in this. I think, frankly, it's an obstructionist and a short-sighted position. And I think the negative consequences of voting for this, I think are both, it's not just financial, but it's also twofold. And one, I think there's a reputational element to this. Couple points. One, I think the trend in public opinion, particularly more among younger people, I think younger people definitely get that the old zoning emphasis on single-family housing in the end is strangling the Massachusetts economy and driving up the cost of housing. 2, I find it interesting because one of the hats I wear is as the pro bono chair of my firm. You know, I see emails going around the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights looking to recruit talented lawyers to fight the communities that are resisting this together with the AG. Frankly, I'm rooting for them in that. I can't participate in what they're doing because of my municipal responsibilities, but I think the right choice is to cooperate with this. And there are financial consequences to this. Again, the ultimate decision of whether to support or reject shouldn't be determined just by the dollars attached to those, but MassWorks, to which we'd be completely ineligible. How many discussions have we been in about one of Southborough's long-term challenges that we do not have any municipal wastewater? What would you rather have? A town meeting article asking for millions and millions of dollars to fund that all on our own, or at least get some help and technical assistance from the state? The state, with respect to one-stop and community compact, I understand the position is that an application from a community which voted against MBTAs will be disfavored or to be certainly taken into account. The state should do that because we're coming and asking for them for money where we willfully refuse to cooperate with a regional solution to improve regional housing. And certainly, we have gotten community compact grants. We want to get a one-stop grant. I know it's one of the ones that Kathy and I spoke to you about a couple months ago. So again, these are some points where at least one or two of us are going to say these at town meeting. I think it would be encouraging if the planning board can also believes in or can make some of these points as well. Thanks.
Mr. Dennington?
Yeah.
So at the beginning of this whole thing, I had emailed Jamie Eldridge's office asking for his collaboration and direct participation in, you know, at least coming to one planning board public hearing on this matter, really to help address the feasibility issues that Mr. Rose, I think, very eloquently brought up some concerns that I don't feel that the State House and particularly our representatives on Beacon Hill have done very much to address, and really to address the fact that it's true that we have an MBTA commuter rail stop here, but we're really, you know, on an outlier in terms of the geographically
Well,
speaking.
I respectfully don't agree with you. And I think, remember, the first iteration of MBTA commuter use that we had, all of this had to be immediately surrounding the train station, right? Okay, so that's where that was a significant development where the select board, planning board, SHOPSI collaborated on a joint letter to the state to ask to cooperate with other towns and saying, we need some relief from those. Now, of course, the introductory paragraph, that letter is, we want to cooperate and help achieve these housing goals. Therefore, let's go to this kind of mix and match system. That's why, again, I am hopeful that when you show the maps, maybe show some visuals of what townhouse housing looks like with 2.5, 3 stories, it will put to bed the idea that this is going to destroy the town, et cetera, because it simply won't.
Okay, so
The state has helped in giving municipalities relief from.
so you're satisfied with our representatives? They have really not, you know, come to any of our meetings. They haven't weighed in any way that I'm aware of. That's kind of where my question to you is, do you feel like there could be more assistance or
Well, we
collaboration?
always use more, but I think both our state senator and our state rep are doing a very good job. Ultimately, it comes down to the voters in Southborough determine whether or not this passes or not. So, I think have we gotten so-called pre-clearance or from the DHCD or?
So as far as the bylaw, the AG's office has commented back, had very minor comments on the bylaw.
So that's good. We also got some, I know we worked with the planning board on a letter explaining, and again, I agree with Kathy that, you know, it's water under the bridge, the technical issues with Bowler before. My understanding is we got some leeway with that as well. Is that correct? So, yeah.
Well, we got them to finish their job.
Okay.
Which they didn't want to do.
I hope I've answered your question, but it's not, I don't see it as really that relevant to whether to support it or not.
Hi, Al Hamilton, 35 Pine Hill Road. I'm a member of the Select Board, SHOPSI, and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. But I want to speak as somebody with a lot of gray hair. Our fastest growing segment of our population is our seniors. And I was kind of shocked the other day when I put pencil to paper and realized, you know what most seniors' most expensive expense is? Property taxes. It's more, I pay more in property taxes, and many others do as well, than I do in federal taxes or state taxes or food or health care or to heat my home or a wide variety of things. And we're going to, frankly, if as we go forward, there's no end in sight to the increases in our property taxes. And the reason I say this, and I've had other seniors say exactly the same thing to me, and they are concerned about being essentially taxed out of the home that they've made for many, many years. In many cases, it's homes like mine, which has some empty bedrooms, but they wonder, where will they go? And so diversity of housing is actually important to our senior community. It is important because someday down the line, I'm gonna get tired of either paying the amount of taxes I'm paying, and maybe want to pay a little less, or I'm gonna get tired of shoveling snow and mowing the lawn. And I want to move to something that really doesn't kind of exist very much in the town of Southborough, and so I'll have to move to another town. Now, mind you, there'll be plenty of people in town who would be happy to see me move to another town, but I think, you know, we've been woefully inadequate in terms of our affordable housing plans and in terms of achieving a diversity in our housing stock. I think this act makes an important step there. You know, I think the planning board has taken on a thankless job, and I think you've actually done a reasonably good job. Thank you.
Hi, Ellen Maria, 1 Witherby Lane. I am a member of CPC. I'm speaking as a private citizen. So also wanted to speak tonight in support of this and add a bit to what others have said. As Mr. Hamilton mentioned, the diversity of our housing stock is woefully poor, I would say. And the first goal listed in our housing production plan is to provide housing options that attract families and enable older adults to remain in Southborough as their needs change. And that's not what we're currently doing. About 90% of homes in Southborough are single family. And our population, as Mr. Hamilton said, is getting older. About 13% of our population is over the age of 65. That's up from about 9% in 1990. Over that same period of time, the share of our population between the ages of 20 and 39 dropped from 31% to 18%. Those are kids of older adults who grew up in Southborough or nearby and want to move back to raise their own kids here, and they can't find a place to live to do so. And so I think it's important that we honor what's in our housing production plan and do this. And I think it's also important that we're clear on what this law actually does and what other towns are doing. We're talking about zoning capacity. We're talking about putting in place the zoning to potentially build up to a certain level, not for anything to be built right now. And I think the planning board, through numerous meetings, hearings, mapping sessions, has made a concerted effort to make sure that this development potential stays within the character of the town. Nothing gets built right away. And to the point of other towns that are fighting this, so at last count, it's about 14 that have not passed this. About 7 are going back to another town meeting this fall or winter. So in the case of Hopkinton, they rejected their law by 8 votes. So they're planning another upcoming town meeting to do this again. So it's not a band of towns that are fighting this, a number that didn't go through with their original bylaw and are trying again. So I think that's our duty to do the same. Thank you.
So one update to your numbers as far as the senior population, we had to do demographic studies to get ready to see if we could close a school. And the demographic studies both found that in 2030, the senior population, 65 and over, is going to be 30%. It's because the baby boomers are aging, and so it's much more than 13. So it really is eye-opening. So 2 more things as far as presentation. So Marnie, you went too fast on the slide that showed that the current zoning restrictions are still in place, setbacks, height. So I slowed down on that one because that's going to be important to people, and just make sure you go one at a time and talk about those. The 10% affordable, you need to get that in there someplace so that people understand, because there are a lot of people that are really focused on affordable housing, so you want to get that in there too. Okay. And then third, I thought Andrew was eloquent with what he said, so I think we should try to get him up to the microphone pretty quick after you finish your presentation, because I think what he said should kind of go next to truly set the stage for everybody.
He's hired.
Excuse me, I know, I agree. Seriously. So I thought that was beautiful from A to Z. So we should try to get that up there before anything else gets said. So three more suggestions.
Hi, I'm Marguerite Landry, 134 Deerfoot, Select Board also, and Marnie, this is for you. One of the questions that I had after reading all of this was, what if the state bounces it back? But I think it would be interesting and important to say at the town meeting that the AG has looked at it already and that the state seems receptive to it the way it is. Okay, just.
That, just to be clear, that's the bylaw. The EOHLC in the compliance model, we're meeting with them next week to,
Okay, but that is an important piece of.
Yeah,
It wouldn't
yeah.
be something that they'd say, oh, forget it.
they better not.
Good evening, Doug Mans, Chair of Shopsy, resident of Southborough, Killam Farm Lane. And so just first wanted to thank the planning board. You guys have been burdening this for quite a bit of time. I think I heard in one of the other meetings, over 40 meetings have been held to date. So appreciate you guys' effort on this. So I just want to state what Jesse already stated. So Shopsy did meet and we did vote 4 to nothing in favor. One person was absent from the vote. So Shopsy is very much in support of the MBTA Communities Act and compliance. And we do appreciate how you guys have spread it out so that all the impact won't happen at one time, which I think is very important. Also have personal support. I'll just do, I mean, you've heard already a lot of great comments already, but we are in a housing crisis. There's no question. This is very important to the governor and lieutenant governor. And the attorney general is going to be the one that's going to really implement this. And so I think we have to be very mindful of that. I have adult children now that really have no chance of affording a home in Southborough, right? We definitely have a housing crisis, a lack of housing diversity, right? So there are really no starter homes left. The ones that are getting torn down quickly, and this is what happened in Newton, become McMansions pretty quickly. There are no townhomes to speak of, and not just for my adult children, but with my wife and I, right? So the idea is a lot of people hold on to their home to give them to their children. But if I do that, we're not going to be in Southborough, right? Because there's no real other options for us. So I think that's really important. So anyways, just want to say we support it and appreciate the effort that you guys have been doing on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brent Barrington, 58 Flag Road. Just for you, Marty, another tip perhaps about the presentation. On the slide where you say the actual compliance number is about 59 acres out of 50, 800, however many units out of the 750, it might be useful for people who might be interested in total minimum compliance to understand why we went above those numbers. I know it has to do with density and making sure that parcels are contiguous, and just maybe mentioning that in a passing way could be helpful to, otherwise it could look like, oh, planning board wanted to go above and beyond and pack as many units or something like that. So something to consider.
Yeah, we were required to choose entire lots, like we couldn't just trim off to get just 10 acres or just 50 acres. So I think that, thank you.
Hi, Freddie Gillespie, 78 Southfield Road, speaking as a private citizen. I had one question on your presentation that you mentioned afterwards, the 10% on 5 units or more in one building. If one lot has 4 unit buildings, are any required affordable?
So I don't believe that was by building, but that's a great question. I'm pretty sure it's by project.
It wasn't
So-
clear when you spoke, so that's why I'm asking.
Fair. Thank you for
So
the question.
it'd be nice. And then I wanted to make a few comments. I'm personally in favor, and I've been working over the years unsuccessfully, but to have more diversity in housing in the town of Southborough. I'm particularly interested in having lower than the 80% median income that all our 40Bs provide, which is a needed income level, but there's nothing at the 40, 60% besides, I believe, 50%. Hudson just did a project that looks really nice. We've had people working on trying to get any buy-in at all on the Johnson property, which has capacity and real possibility, but there's no one in the town willing to help work on that at a level that can make it happen at this point, but it's something that could happen. I'm going to say that there's been, the board knows, but there's other people here tonight and people watching. I'm not in favor of this bylaw because, and I'll say it again, you did a really good job on making sure none of the lots can be built out except for the one on Southville. And to think this isn't going to happen right away. 90 units by right, ready to go. And you're going to say, well, they won't get that many, but you say you're zoning, you're creating the zoning, you're not building it. You don't know what's going to go there. And there's nothing in the bylaw that says when they get 90 units by right, and you know the property owner's ready to go and wants to build housing there, there's nothing in the bylaw that says they can't go to the ZBA, they can't get higher heights, less setback. Your little cute little townhome, that's out the window with 90 units, profitability. You can't deny it if they want it. And the other thing I would say is the Milton case is going to declare some more information. We go to town meeting in September, 90-unit project gets submitted, and then Milton changes everything, they say you can't do this, you can't do that. Who knows? We don't get a do-over. That's grandfathered, even if you went back and changed the bylaw. So that's why I think it's premature to run ahead with this. You know the reasons, this board knows the reasons why I think the Southville Road was short-sighted. It was, I can't say what you're doing to that community. You talk about diversity of housing, Southville Road, south side of town, that's where your diversity is. Yet you're slamming it with 90 units by right with this bylaw. And everyone speaking can say, oh, they want diversity, but they're not looking at 90 units right next door to them or down the street. And when it was happening to you, how you felt about those developers, that's how I look at this planning board.
All right, Andrew Pfaff, Chair of Advisory. This is going to be a little nitpicky in terms of the actual zoning code, so bear with me. So we are adding a definition for multifamily in here on top of one that already exists. So just, it's a little confusing if you're getting into the details of it. So if it's a single building, 3-unit minimum within the MCOD. If it's 2 buildings, it's a 4-unit minimum, where everywhere else it's a 2-unit definition of a multifamily. So, and then if you have 2 buildings, but one's a single family, one's a duplex, it's now not a multifamily, but it was in the old definition. So I think maybe even just having one definition would be helpful. I don't think anybody would necessarily disagree.
The only thing is that we had a definition for our major residential development. So we had to do a different one for this multifamily, otherwise would have to change the major residential development.
There's already a dwelling
So we,
family,
you know,
dwelling multifamily MCOD, and they're not the same.
we do often do follow-up at
Okay.
subsequent town
Yeah, yeah.
meetings to clean up the code and with these types of things. That's not unusual for us to have to come back
Yeah.
and
we-
do
we-
other
later, I'm
spot fixes later. Yeah.
Things I noticed while reading it. The other one I was having trouble understanding is, will MCOD require major site plan with a public hearing? Because do you consider the existing first sentence of the major site plan review that any new development other than a single family or 2-family residence to exclude the condition where both building types stand separately on the same lot, a major or not? That was one that I had trouble following whether or not it was going to follow under major or minor.
Depends on the square footage. If it's over 2,000 square feet, it's a major.
Yeah, exactly. But it didn't specify and in there in terms of which one it would be. And that's the main one. But that was the major, like, just kind of understanding those pieces. But, cool, thanks.
Don't go away, Andrew. I had a question on your comment on the definition and as it applies to ADU.
Oh, yeah, I think just one of my concern is reading through all the list of requirements is that a single family house with an ADU would not trick this, all these requirements, that with the new law passed, I think that just to educate this, that might be good for the presentation too, because people know about that. And it's like, okay, so am I now considered a multifamily if I add an ADU for my in-laws and now I got to do covered bicycle storage and, all that stuff. So I think just having something that says like this will not apply to, a single family with an ADU or a single family with an ADU that's less than 2,000 or 900 square feet or whatever the verbiage is. But I think that would be a good clarifying item.
Okay, but a single family with an ADU would only be 2 units.
Correct. But-
And this requires 3.
Correct. With this, that's where I was getting into the having 2 multifamily definitions. It was just getting messy. And so just clear, but that, if you're saying within this area, but also even within the rest of the town, but as part of this, so it would not qualify or not.
Right, so so the multifamily housing, the MBTA is only in certain areas and it's
Correct.
3 units or more.
Correct.
And the ADU will be townwide.
But the other question is, if it's an overlay, does it wipe out all the other underlying? That's
Correct.
why I'm getting at, like, okay, so it's a multifamily on top of a multifamily. I'm just.
So
confused.
so it would.
But if, you know, I have a feeling the average citizen might also be confused that I live here and multifamily has always existed. And now it's multifamily within this district, so which takes precedent, et cetera, et cetera. And just clarifying, I think it's really more of a concern of people that say, hey, I want to add a little in-law. I mean, people understand, yeah, I'm going to make a 10-unit multifamily complex. There's going to be a lot of bureaucracy and zoning and plans that need to be done. But if somebody wants to add a, 500 square foot in-law apartment, am I going to have to do this, 10 pages of requirements?
Yeah, I don't think it wouldn't trigger because it doesn't hit the units. And it would only, so it would only be applicable in the area within a half mile of the train station because those are residential and industrial zone. Because there's no residential allowed in the industrial district, and the ADU is only applicable in residential zones or zones that allow residential. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that brings up a good point, is that we don't really say we maintain the underlining zoning. So there's a lot of things that we've missed in this deck that I think I've taken 3 pages of notes. So thank you for the feedback. All really good.
And I should ask Paul for an hour and a half. Okay. Hi, Patty. If you can introduce yourself. Can't hear you. Did you have a question, Patty? Where'd that come from?
You just came up on me on your computer, maybe.
If the board can hear me, I got a text from Bridget, our recording clerk, who said that people who are in the attendee room can hear the attendees and me fine, but they couldn't hear, although the hearing room couldn't hear me. So there may be an issue with the volume in the hearing room if you can't hear Patty.
Hi, Patty. If you can introduce yourself. We can't hear you. No, I'm shut off when you get feedback. Yes.
So we've got part 2 to our meeting downstairs that we need to get to. So the select board is ready to go ahead and vote on support of this article.
So we need to go through the bylaw because there were some proposed changes.
So how are you going to do that? You're going to do that right now?
Yeah,
And then do what as far as getting it into the warrant tomorrow morning, tonight?
right now.
Okay, so we'll stay for that. You think it's fairly cut and dry what you're going to try to do here?
I hope so.
Okay, so we'll wait for that then.
Patty, go ahead.
Mimi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear Patty?
I can't hear Patty, and she's no longer elevated as a panelist. And she might be trying to log on again because she's not in the attendee room anymore.
Oh, she's showing up on my screen.
Oh, she's not here on mine. I have 17 participants, 12 attendees. And she's not showing. Here she comes now. There she is. Can you see her? She's on the big screen on the left.
So what we're gonna. Hi, Patty.
I can't hear you.
Can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, that's a little crazy. Okay. So I appreciate the amount of work that the planning board has put into all of this. I know it's been many, many, many hours. And Amy and you guys discussed the impact if we don't move forward, which I get. And I understand this would not be an immediate build out, just a zoning change. And although this may not be specific to your actual presentation at town meeting, as a town meeting attendee, I have a couple of questions. Could you offer a precise and concise picture of your expectations of how this will specifically affect our town in 5 years, and 10 years, and 15 years in regard to taxes, municipal costs? You've already mentioned the school attendance, but the impact on roads, DPW traffic, etc. And regarding what Freddie was saying, do we have developers salivating on the sidelines to develop this property? Or is this really an expectation of a slow build out over many, many years? In my humble opinion, I think we need more of this concept of long-term planning and action over time versus some of the reactionary decisions that we've seen in the past. But I'd like a picture of how this will affect current residents of Southborough in the immediate and future. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. I don't know how to answer that question. This is zoning. I mean, we have subdivision control on the books, and I couldn't tell you what that's going to be over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Some subdivisions come up or they don't, or, the same with major residential development. It's zoning. So I can't tell you what's going to be built tomorrow or what's going to be built in 10 years.
You must have had some reason. I know you had reasons for choosing and allocating the spaces that you did. And I think I understand the concept behind it, but I'm just, it's hard to, make a formal pro or nay decision when I don't think we really have a picture of how it's going to actually affect us. I like the concept of more affordable housing. I like the concept of, helping the state and the national problem with housing. But I'd like a picture of how it's actually going to affect me personally as a taxpayer and a citizen of this community. That's all.
Thank you.
Hey, can I answer? I don't think I have all the answers, but there'll be more taxpayers, Patty. And I don't mean to be flippant, but these are people that want to move into our community and live with us. I did want to just mention one thing. I don't think that it's been said, but some towns, the town planner or planning board just went off and picked the parcels. I believe Westboro, I thought, but I'm not sure if it's Westboro, but I know some of the towns, they didn't even hold public hearings. And I think Mr. Stein said that, this isn't perfect, or maybe Mr. Dennington said, this isn't a perfect plan, but this has been sort of a group effort. And you know what happens with like group efforts, right? But what we've tried to do our best at is to listen to people and really put, to heart some of the information that's come in. You could say, for example, especially in the half-mile radius, that we could have picked a different parcel down there. And some of you might remember that I tried. I tried picking Fitzgerald. I don't know if anybody was here for that one, and I got huge public reaction. I tried putting all of Blendon Woods, and I got most of the Blendon Woods neighborhood that came out. So this has not been easy. I think that what the planning board has done is to fairly choose parcels the best we could in the keeping in mind what the citizens of Southborough have asked us to do. It's not going to solve all the problems. We still have issues, and we still have to, do a lot of things in town for housing. But this is really one way I think that we can put our best foot forward. I also have an issue personally with choosing which laws we're going to follow and which ones we're not. So I feel good, at least, that we've gotten the opinions of most people in town. We've gotten a lot of feedback on the other side that there are developers in the room and young people in the room and people who want affordable housing, want to make this community a better place to live, and want people to come into this community. So I think that we have come up with a plan that does that. And, hopefully the town will vote to support it. Thanks.
Mimi, can I just add one thing? So this isn't an affordable bylaw. It's a housing bylaw. And I think there's a lot of misconception from a lot of people that this is going to take care of the affordable issue that we have with residents that may or may not want to come to Southborough. There's only a 10% requirement for this. I know Planning Board had discussed this. In order to raise that to a 20%, we would have had to do a feasibility study, and there was a whole nother process that we just didn't have time to go down. I think pretty much everybody, I guess I shouldn't speak for the Planning Board, but we were very positive to looking into doing a higher ratio of affordable housing. But just to be clear, a lot of people think that this is all about affordable housing, and unfortunately it's not. It's about housing and potentially diversity in housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Last comment, Mr. Robbins, and then we have to do the bylaw.
Well, some people, Chris Robbins, 39 Parkerville Road. I'm speaking as a citizen and not part of the Economic Development Committee that I used to be a part of. I think some of the questions have been horrific. How is this going to impact us? But let's go back to why we're here. I sat in the meeting and listened to the presenter from the governor's office talk about the housing crisis. This is a crisis. The word is crisis. What it means is companies cannot move here because there isn't affordable housing for employees. This isn't just for the poor. This is for the executives, the employees. We have one of the largest concentrations of academic institutions producing the best and the brightest, but there's no place to go. So we're doing a wonderful job trying to plan how we can respond, but I'd like to know what we are going to do to increase the business community. Why isn't this in the discussion? If we're going to make these changes, how is it going to impact Route 9? What are we going to do about sewer on Route 9? We've had companies who come here and leave because we chose years ago to vote down sewer. So part of the question here is, what you are deciding to put before the board, the town, is going to impact the growth of the business community. There should be a report out for the last 10 years, how many businesses are here, how many jobs have they created, and what are the tax revenues we have picked up. These are the people who lessen the burden of the citizens or the seniors who also cannot afford to live here. So I'd ask you to please, this is not I can't say, if you were in the room listening to the governor's executive representative, it is scary. This is serious business. It's going to impact us financially. It's already started. Companies are leaving Massachusetts because of it. So I'm asking again, where's the profile on who the businesses are that currently exist? How many people do they employ? What is your zoning bylaws going to do to improve and attract the ability of business to thrive and prosper?
I'll ask that question of the Economic Development Committee.
John Bottolini, 4 Wyeth Circle. I'm the only developer in the room. You guys know I wanted my property in there. It wasn't chosen. I think it wasn't chosen because it was vacant. My knowledge, anybody who asked for this didn't get it, and the people that didn't want it kind of had to skirt around it. In general, I think, and I've looked at the maps, every parcel you've got, except for the one that Freddie's talking about, you've got to do a tear down. You've got to buy an existing business that's paying taxes and tear it down in order to build this. So you're kind of, to Chris Robbins's thought, you're devouring up a good example, Ted's of Fables. He's running a business out of there. You're going to zone him. I don't know how old Peter Spacey is, but he's certainly retirement age. If he decides to sell, somebody's going to tear it down, and you're going to get 150 units there. My land is vacant. You skipped over it. So it's, to me, this doesn't make sense to that point, that if you want the housing and you want the diversity of housing, you should have chose a few more. And I've lived in this town my whole life. My family's been here 120 years. I mean, quite frankly, if we all thought this way, probably none of you would be here. You know, I know, but it's true. So to me, it looks like I would have liked the opportunity for the zoning. Whether I used it or not, I would have at least liked the opportunity. And that's what we're kind of talking about. We're talking about the opportunity to have diversity of housing. A lot of these other towns that have adopted this or whatever, they had multifamily, they had condominiums, they had apartment zoning, they had everything. It was under special permit. All they did was take the special permit off of it, and they met the requirements. But we're going around, one of the parcels, if you got, I think it's 15 acres or 14.5, it's across from Kin's Food. You've got to go out of town, come back around, back into town. So I actually think you go almost to Marlboro, into Northborough, take a right, take a left. And there's a building there. They can tear that building down and do anything. This town doesn't gain anything by that. You lose a taxpayer to gain multifamily, and then all of a sudden you might have to be sending a school bus out that far, or doing something else. I don't think it's the corridor of what you've chosen is to meet the requirements. And the mantra has been, we're going to zone it, but we don't have to build it. And I've been hearing this meeting after meeting after meeting. And Freddie's right. You're probably only going to get one built, and that's going to be whatever she's saying down there. But the other stuff is all going to be tear downs. Everything's going to be a tear down. So I don't know. I mean, I've lived here my whole life, and I'll continue, and we'll keep building.
So we didn't pick anything, Jack. Everything was from the mapping sessions. And it was what was chosen at the mapping section.
I really do. I mean,
I don't
didn't
know.
It was a popularity contest. I could have loaded the room up. It was come and we're going to map things out, and we're going to.
Right. And we took what was mapped, put it through the rubrics that all the residents said that they wanted, that, you know, the underlying zoning, and not to use any historic properties, and not be
I don't
in.
dispute that. And I'm not here saying, jeepers, let's, I hope you build something, we get 825 units, because I do agree with Howard. We can't handle all that quick. But over a period of time, you've set this up, so you have to tear down one taxpayer to replace it with a multifamily. And over the number of years, I don't know how long it'll take, but it'll probably happen on something. So that's the only point I'm trying to make. I mean, Chris brought that up, and I just wanted to answer a little bit, is that
you're gonna have to tear down taxpayers who are gonna end up selling out to multifamilies. That's what'll probably happen. So, all right, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the bylaw. And I think I emailed it to you with all the changes on it. Okay, so the first thing was from Liz Leiden. That first, the last line in that first paragraph. I don't see any issue with that.
Mimi, can I just ask before we go through this line by line and all, is that the plan is to go through all the comments? Can you just tell me why certain things were highlighted in the yellow?
So the yellow,
I didn't catch that.
so those were the changes that were made to originally when we had to go back through the compliance model and rezone the half mile from the train station. So those things were changed then.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Yeah, I read through it. I didn't see anything that would be remarkable or needed changes. I would be fine accepting all.
Yeah. And just the one thing that, the comment from, so there's a lot of little comments and, punctuation and grammar from, Liz Leiden. So those, I'm fine with all of those. Margaret Hurley from the AG's office just commented on, under B2, B and C that, it had to be definitive, shall be.
Versus maybe, yeah.
Then there was clarification made to the dimensional standards and the table feet. And percentage, just to clarify.
So Mimi, can I just interject? Can you hear me?
Put in a presentation.
Yeah.
To show that no underlying zoning.
Mimi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, if you go back to where it's supposed to say shall from the AGO's comments from
Yeah.
Margaret Hurley's, if you can just scroll back a page on the shared screen, Colleen.
Go back to the AG's comments.
Okay, right there in the pink. So, the document we're looking at still reflects maybe. And I think those should be, Elizabeth Leiden said
Is that what I
shall.
sent you? Oh,
That doesn't seem to be the right
oh.
document.
So those need to be changed. Oh, I see.
Yeah, this is the one we discussed. They should put them all into one document, so I'm trying to go through.
I'll change that right now. Okay, those will be shall, and I'll change that right now. And then the other thing was comment at one of our previous meetings under buildings 3, number 5, to remove the rooftop. Is
So
everyone okay with that?
I don't actually agree with that. I think rooftop, like we see it, you see it in any urban setting, they have rooftop, and although we don't have any like dimensional standards, like you have to have a railing height or anything like that, like there's nothing in our code right now, just a building code. But I understand what Ms. Faniff had recommended removing it, but I don't think we should, because I think in sustainability and environmental, there's a lot of rooftop developments when there isn't green space on the ground that are being used on rooftops. So I would hate to take that out and be short-sighted there.
On a 3-story building? Her point was that it would be disturbing to like neighbors. Anyone else?
Well, and to Freddie's point earlier, in some of these cases, there's going to be multiple detached structures that will not have shared rooftop space. So, but still, we want those to be considered multifamily. So I think it actually opens up more flexibility by removing it. Does that make sense? Marnie's asking if we need a vote on it. I think we can do it by just consensus. I mean, I'm fine with removal of rooftop.
Yeah, I am too. So I think that's that, and I'll update that document. So we okay with everything else? Do we need to take a vote on that, or?
So the motion is to accept the current version of the MBTA Communities Overlay District bylaw language with changes.
Could I just
Second.
point out one thing, just before you finish the motion? Mimi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so the document you're looking at is town council's comments, Margaret Hurley from the AGO's office comments, and then Andrew Pfaff's comments incorporated.
In the one from Bonnie.
Yep.
And Bonnie's. So if you go back to the very beginning under definitions B. I
Yep.
just want to make sure we're covering everything. Part B. So, and you go to multifamily. Okay, so you are incorporating all of those. Okay, I just wanted to make sure because there's a lot of changes. And then you said all the minor ones from town council were also included. And Andrew Pfaff's right there under dwelling multifamily housing, the building term is not being impacted, that's staying. Under the definitions.
Yeah, I don't think so.
See right there, under multifamily housing within the MCOD.
Yeah.
And the building is highlighted, the term building in the
Yep.
last word, that's staying as is.
Yes, I don't think that the ADU will impact that.
Okay, okay. Okay, all right, I'm sorry, it's just because I haven't been in the office, so I just want to make sure we don't miss anything.
Yep.
Before it
No, I
goes.
think my
Thank you.
motion covers what you just said,
Yes, okay.
and we had a second, so.
I have
Thank
a
you.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brasher, yes.
I think select board wants to vote now.
Okay.
So the select board chair is confused. So Colleen, does Mark Purple have this?
I know what Mark has,
Does he have this that you just voted on?
some of it. This is a.
I'm updating it right now and I'm going to email it to him.
Okay, because, normally we try to vote on articles when they're done, so there's no changes, nothing that affects us. I really want to try to get this vote into the warrant. And I'd like to see it done in public, so select board, are you okay voting tonight, knowing that what we've got in front of us is not exactly what's going to be in the warrant? There are some few changes.
Well, you'll have them in 2 seconds.
I agree. So that's what I'm saying. Is everybody okay to vote on the?
Kathy, excuse me, Kathy, when each select board member speaks, can you please pass them the microphone?
Yes.
Thank you.
Al Hamilton, we can simply move to support the bylaw as modified by the planning board to see the 9th of September. In fact, I will move that.
Second.
Any further discussion, select board? Okay, so everyone in favor of the motion made by Mr. Hamilton, seconded by Mr. Dennington. And so that's a 5-0 vote from the select board to support the MBTA article. Okay, so we're going to adjourn this meeting at 8:25, and then we're going to resume with another meeting down in Mr. Purple's office. So good night, everyone.
And I'm going to send this to Mark right now.
I think I'll plan to put a supported article, concluding slide by select board. I know it'll be in the warrant, but, and then if anyone else is going to vote.
Advisory is gonna also motion to adjourn. I'm not sure if we still have a quorum, but people in the room? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good discussion.
So Shopsy's also going to adjourn, and I'll look around the room and motion, adjourn. Everyone in favor to adjourn? We already lost that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Doug, can I ask a question before you go? Is Shopsy or has Shopsy taken a position on what was on the screen tonight?
We have not, right?
Okay.
So we obviously voted at our last meeting in support of, complying with the MBTA.
Okay.
So, and now that we're down to 3, I mean, we could vote, we just lost Al though, so.
You already adjourned though, but I'm just,
Yeah.
is it adequate with that, Marnie, to be able to put that on the slide deck as support? Okay, that was all I wanted. I wanted to make sure. Thanks, Doug.
Just to cover our bases, and I don't think this is out of order because we had posted a meeting for the 30th. So we can huddle and revote at that point.
So we are
Administrative.
going to post a meeting for the 30th, and so we can do that too as well. So just before. Okay, great. Thank you.
So will you entertain a motion to continue?
Oh, yes.
You know, what we need to do is determine if we need to schedule a meeting for to continue this discussion to either the 16th is not great for me, but I could do it. Or the 23rd. What's the consensus on the board as far as even doing another meeting at all before the 30th? I mean, Marnie, it seems like there's a lot of presentation changes to review, which would you like a working session on that with the entire planning board?
I think if I create the deck and circulate it, I think if people are willing to iterate over email and provide feedback, I'd be fine with that.
Can I also offer a suggestion too, Marnie, as we, Sam has the ability to record what you're going to say at town meeting to get it out in advance. If you're interested in doing that, I'll reach out to Terry. The Sam board already talked about that. That might be to do, a PSA that you can put out all over social media and whatever, so we can have people a little more educated going into town meeting as well. So just a thought.
Okay, So is the consensus that we do not need a meeting in the interim?
So we need to do frequently asked questions. If someone wants to work with me on that, I'd be happy to do that, and then we can circulate those out the same way. Any volunteers?
Well, I can do it. I
Yeah.
figured you would want to do it. because since you're-
She's doing the
you good?
PowerPoint.
Okay, then I'll do, yeah, I'll work with you.
Okay, so that, and then the last thing was, so Marnie volunteered to do the presentation. Are we all okay with that? Should we all be up on the stage?
But like down front.
Yeah.
Do you need one other person
Mimi.
to help field questions?
I nominate Mimi.
Okay.
Who will be going on the 17th to talk to the moderator then? Mimi and Marnie?
Yeah, I can go on the 17th.
Okay.
All right. So I think those were the things that I wanted to hit on for.
And what about
So all of
handouts? Do
this
you want
can be
any
done
handouts?
without, without a meeting, even with Zoom. Is that what we're in agreement on? We can just do this offline?
Yeah, I think
and It's
so.
all administrative.
Yeah.
Okay, great. In that case, I guess I will move to continue the public hearing for MBTA communities to September 30th, 2024. At 6 PM.
Oh, that's right, September 30th. Okay.
Mimi, does the planning
there a
board want
second?
a handout?
I'm sorry, Karina?
I'm sorry you can't hear me so well. Does the planning board want a handout?
Yeah,
Something-
Jesse and I are going to work on frequently asked questions and send it
Okay.
out for comment.
Okay, good. That would be the handout. Sorry, thank you.
Do I have a second on the hearing continuation?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes?
Brascio, yes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a public hearing, 250 Turnpike Road, major site plan approval. Welcome. Thank you for your patience.
Problem. Good evening.
So are we just doing a continuance
I
tonight?
believe so. We haven't heard back from Fuss and O'Neill regarding the peer review, so I think at this point it probably makes sense to continue it to September 30th, I believe. Oh, town meeting. I apologize. I saw the date online and I thought that was the next hearing. So okay,
It would be October 17.
okay. Do we anticipate I think we'd have to conclude
21st.
everything that hearing,
Thank you.
if I'm not mistaken. I think we'd have to conclude everything that hearing, if I'm not mistaken. To October,
To October 21st.
correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
So there were a lot of comments at the last meeting. Are there new plans in the works?
Oh, no, we're waiting for Fuss and O'Neill's peer review feedback, at which point we'll be able to implement their feedback and then the feedback discussed at the last hearing and then get the planning board a modified set of plans to review.
Okay, and all that will be able to happen before the 21st?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Mhm.
So the decision due date currently is September 22nd
It's been extended
to
to October 21st.
same day as the meeting.
No, the October 17th, I think Colleen just said it was.
I misspoke. It's October 21st.
Mhm.
So
The
so
decision
the-
date's the
okay,
25th.
25th. Okay, that's what I wanted to. make sure.
Also, we have
Mimi,
to
if I may?
indicate that Jesse has a Mullins form filed with the town clerk for the public hearing that was missed, just for the
Okay.
record.
So I did review the entirety on YouTube and I reviewed all the materials. So
Excellent.
file Mullins.
Ms.
Um,
Braccio?
So, I mean, I just throw this out there for the board, seeing as we're meeting only once in October, would the board maybe entertain? I think there's going to be a lot to go over to try to get it all done in one meeting on October 21st. If the board would consider setting up a meeting for for just this. Yeah, I mean, I think once we get Fuss and O'Neill, there's going to be stuff to go over and I just think it's putting a huge burden on us to get it all done in one night. So that would be my suggestion.
The applicant would
if
be
the
open to
applicant ag-
an additional hearing as well, prior
Yeah.
to the 17th.
21st.
Is the hearing the 21st?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, can I just interject one more thing? The extension request could be, modified by hand. Having seen that, it was signed, well, if the representative re-signed it, to add it to, the November 4th. If you extend it to the November 4th, then you'll have October 20th and the 4th.
I don't have authority to extend it to November 4th, and I anticipate our principal wanting to get it done no later than the 21st. So if we can do a hearing prior to the 21st, that would be much appreciated.
So the only date would be the 7th because the 14th is Columbus Day. But so my only concern is getting all the information in. So Fuss and O'Neill in plans that address Fuss and O'Neill and the planning board's concerns from the last
Absolutely.
meeting.
And Cheryl, I'll tell you, we've already internally made modifications to our plans based on last hearing's discussions. So many things were pointed out. There were some inconsistencies between plans, and all those things have been highlighted. So I imagine there will be some overlap of what we discussed at last hearing and what Fuss and O'Neill's comments will be. I am hopeful. I'm more than hopeful. I anticipate us being able to get you a modified set of plans at least a week or week and a half prior to October 7th, I would say. If we get Fuss and O'Neill's comments this week or early next week. I think we're anticipating them soon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we're anticipating them soon, aren't we, Karina?
Yeah, but there's no guarantee. There's no
Right.
guarantee.
So do we want an in-person hearing here? Yeah.
It would have to be like 7:15
Okay.
due to I just have work issues that day. Is everybody okay with the 7:15 start?
7:15?
Okay with that?
Yeah.
So, are you okay with the for me to move that now?
I am October 7th at 7:15. Yes.
So so moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brascio, yes.
And do we need to move the extension also? 'Cause
Make a motion that the planning board approve the extension of 250 Turnpike Road Contractors Yard Building to for a decision date of October 25th, 2024.
Second.
Before you make the final vote on the extension request form that David Ferris signed,
So
you'd
there's
have to
just
modify it to October 7th. That continued to October 7th with a decision.
Right, so
deadline.
Karina, I'll do that. Can I just do that after we finish the vote on the decision date?
Yeah, just Attorney Banan would have to agree that that form would be changed from October.
If I may,
21st.
I don't think you have to modify the form. It's
No,
just giving
because
us
it's-
more time than we need. I don't
Yeah.
think it's an issue. And we may even use that date if necessary. I think that was what we were anticipating, right? 2
yeah.
hearings.
Yeah,
Okay,
So
because the
it-
form says continued to October 21st with a decision
Yeah,
deadline. of
Karina
October.
is concerned that,
Oh, not the date itself, but the wording.
well,
the hearing shall be continued to.
right, that would actually prevent us legally from meeting for a public hearing prior to the 21st.
So I'm happy to modify the form to October 7th and then whatever you'd like to do. It seems like just a wording verbiage issue.
Yeah. So can he just change it and initial it right here on this form, Karina, to October 7th?
Yes, he
leave-
can.
And
as-
leave the decision date October 25th?
Yes, but but George, you'd have to sign that form as a representative.
And that's not a problem. Mr. Ferris has already agreed to the 21st, so it wouldn't be an issue. Basically, what we're doing with this form is just continuing today's hearing to the 7th, but still the final decision date would remain the 21st, which he's already agreed to.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe you could add October 7th and October 21st, like just interject the October 7th.
As amended.
Thank you.
So we kept saying October 25th. So it's October 21st
So what we're doing is extending the public hearing
to the 21st.
to the 7th,
Okay.
and we're extending the decision deadline to October 25th.
But did you agree to that?
Yes.
Oh, you did? I
Yes.
thought you said you agreed to the 21st. Sorry.
The
hearing
decision
date.
deadline is the 21st.
Okay.
So the hearing date was the 21st, then you have a few days to write up a decision.
And also in case there is something that happens where something happens, if there's a public health crisis or the townhouse is closed or whatever, you have 4 days in order to set up another public hearing date. John Morris always used to say that in the wintertime, if it snowed, you had leeway to have an additional days to continue the hearing to.
Okay, so we
There's
continued
only-
the hearing
Yeah.
to the 7th. Did we vote on the extension?
No.
Okay, okay. Was it seconded? And that is the decision date to October 25th.
The action deadline, right?
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brascio, yes.
I'm sorry, does that conclude this hearing?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, and thank you for the accommodation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you again for the long wait and your patience.
Problem.
Can I borrow your pen? I gave it back, but I only have a pencil. All right. The next item on the agenda is a discussion item, 10 Turnpike Road Storage Facility Major Site Plan Approval as built and bond review. Can you bring us up to date on this, Karina?
I can. So if you recall, in 2019, I believe it was, I just want to double check that. Hold on 1 second. Don't have everything in front of me here.
We've stopped hearing you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Yeah, you
sorry.
got to hold that thing in your mouth.
Yeah, I gotta put it in my mouth. Stop me from talking. Okay, okay, I got it here. All right. So, this is 10 Turnpike Road, if you recall. It was a storage facility named All American Storage Facility, which went through major site plan approval and lower impact development back in 2019, 2020. And that was during the pandemic, so they did their construction, took a few years. And back in April sometime, the proponent, Raj Malhotra, has submitted a request to have as-built review for certificate of occupancy, which is what they're seeking. So we had a few site meetings and some revisions to the as-builts. And the as-builts were provided to Fuss and O'Neill for review. And because Melissa Danza and I had been at the site with the owner Raj and his engineering team and contractor, and had seen that some items were not completed, we also engaged Fuss and O'Neill to do a bond review in order to determine the cost of any items that are not completed. So we received the as-built review last week, and we did receive a bond review today, which I distributed to the planning board members. In addition, after I sent the as-built review of all the comments Fuss and O'Neill has on the as-built that were submitted, Imad Zrain, who is the engineer for the project, provided responses to the Fuss and O'Neill comments. And those were also provided to the planning board members. I know it's short notice, relatively speaking, but we were hoping that this information was available to the planning board with enough time to review. So the final outcome is that in the bond review, it was determined that there was approximately $37,000 worth of work related to potential drainage changes if the engineer on record cannot prove that the changes that were made to the drainage system do not meet the intent of the design. And then there were some landscaping issues as well, so to cover those things. So there were some changes during construction to curbing alignment, some walkways. The retaining wall wasn't needed to the extent that it was designed. There were some changes to the site lighting. However, the lights themselves were determined to be compliant. There was an area or two where there was light spill trespassing from up to 1.5 foot candles. But I'll let the proponent and his team explain some of those things. But the big gist of the thing is that it's my opinion that, this $37,000 bond would need a surety agreement based on prior town council's opinion and recommendation, which is something that could be worked up. Also, the bond did not include an inflation amount percentage, which is depending on the outcome tonight on how long the proponent thinks it would take to finish these items. And then also there was one other thing, a surety agreement, inflation. Oh, and that the engineer would provide drainage calculations proving that what he is confirming to be a system that functions with the intent that it's supposed to function for Fuss and O'Neill to review, that possibly a temporary certificate of occupancy may be recommended, depending on if the planning board has other questions or other findings during this discussion. So I'll stop talking and I'll pass it back. So that's what I have. They're seeking a certificate of occupancy, and we have as-built review and a bond review from Fuss and O'Neill, and a response from the proponent's engineer. And that's for discussion this evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Karina. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for your patience.
Sure, a pleasure. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Jim DeVellis. I'm a professional civil engineer with DeVellis Serene. And I was in front of you in 2018 to get permitted. It was an existing warehouse facility. Renovated it, did an expansion, and got approval, as Karina had said. With me is Raj Malhotra. He's the owner. And my client from All American Self Storage, and Imad Zrain, and John Christopher, who's the lead engineer, and John Christopher, who's a contractor, if there's any questions tonight. So no dispute or disagreement with what Karina had said. It was started the construction was started during the pandemic. It dragged a little bit. It's a beautiful site if you get an opportunity to go there. It's a three-story facility, all internal. It's a beautiful site. So we did get comments from Fuss and O'Neill last week. We responded to them with a letter that Karina references to the planning board. This afternoon, we got, I think about 3:30, there was the bond that was sent back, and we reviewed it in agreement. There was one question that we had, and I think Karina mentioned it, that it's kind of an if and when. There was one item that talks, or two items, about the detention basin. Along Route 9, there's a detention basin, and we ran into some ledge, and we couldn't blast because of, there's a gas line there and Mass Highway issues, so they had to use a ram hoe. The side slopes were 2-to-1. It ended up being about 1.5-to-1, but it's against ledge and we use jute netting and it's a little deeper to compensate the 2-foot change on the side. So we'll prepare engineering drawings. In the bond, there was a $5,000 allowance to redo the basin, but it does say potential. So if we don't have to do it, then that would, we'd assume that wouldn't have to be redone. If you go out there now, both basins are fully vegetated, the side slopes are done and they've been functioning, so we don't see that as an issue. All the other items on here are landscaping and trees and things like that. Under contract, when we sign off on it, there's a year warranty anyways. So we're gonna go make sure that the seeding and the landscaping's done. So there's nothing on here that is a surprise. Raj is looking to move in as soon as possible. It's been a long haul. And if we can get the CO or the temporary CO, that he could do that in a couple weeks, that would be great. Do you want to add anything, Raj? Or?
No, it's been a long, difficult time because building has been sitting there for quite a few months and there's outside work that had to be done. But building is ready almost 100% for maybe 6 months now. And financially, it's been very, very difficult. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Stein?
So there's light spillage?
Yeah, so we had original photometrics plan done in I think the fixtures changed from when we started to now. There was a new photometrics plan that was done in one of the corners, and it's up against really a light pole from the abutting property, which is a service station. I don't know, what is it?
Auto repair.
Auto repair. It's a back parking lot. So their light and our light are right next door to each other, the same distance. And our photometrics plan just show about a foot candle just over the property line. But it's a lower light pole, and it's I guess our response that we submitted to Fuss and O'Neill's letter was recognizing there is a little bit of a corner, but it's just because of the light fixture and the way it was. And if it's an issue, we can put a shield on it.
Yeah, pardon my ignorance. You say there are no sensitive receptors around the site? What does that mean?
That means if it was a residential area or conservation land, but it's a commercial automotive parking lot that's right up to the property line on the other side with a light identical to ours on the other side. No disrespect. We're just saying it's not residential and it's okay to be lit in that corner because it already is.
The sidewalk, and that's a little bit of something that usually we would,
Yeah, it's an existing building and it's a 3-story and there's grade change. There was a door midway and a door down the bottom. There's no reason to come out this door, walk up a sidewalk to that door because everything's internal. So between the ramping and stuff, it was just eliminated. It's not a sidewalk to public access. It's a sidewalk for the functionality of the building, and there's just no reason to go out one door and come in another door. So it was eliminated. It was tight quarters in that area with the retaining walls, and it was just best not to put it in.
But also on the.
I mean, why not come back for a modification then? That's the part I don't, I mean.
Understood, fair
it's
enough.
Hard,
Fair question.
we spend a lot of time and resources on doing these site plan reviews, and when people just don't build things to plan, that really puts the board in a bad position because we're really effectively saying to the public and to the stakeholders, what does it matter? What does the site plan matter if people can just do things that aren't in the plan?
Yeah.
See our problem. with
No
it?
disrespect, and it wasn't an intentional, we were gonna slight, it was a sidewalk that it wasn't anything to do with public access. It was attached to the building and in hindsight, you're right.
Oh,
we
but
should-
why?
In hindsight.
My
we should
question was,
back
why
it.
didn't you guys come back for modification?
It was an
This is from
oversight.
2018,
Mhm.
and this is 2024. I don't know.
Like to
I
add
mean, I'm a one member, so we can continue with the questions.
maybe to add something, there's a slope of going out. If somebody goes, it'll be more icy. It'll be safer for people to go inside.
So, sir, the question is not actually why you didn't do it. The question is why you didn't come back for a modification.
An error.
Yeah, we should have. We're not
Okay.
disputing that.
Okay.
All set? Ms. Houlihan?
Yeah, I mean, I echo Jesse's point. I think we are pretty, on illumination, we are pretty strict around light trespass, even though it's another property and it's not residential, it's still light trespass. So I think the shield would be important for our perspective. Your point around the potential that you would need to, the $5,000 on the bond, that you may or may not need to do that. What are you specifically asking for? Are you asking for that not to be included in the bond or?
No, you can, it's okay to put it in the bond, but our response was the basin works fine. It's actually more volume than what was designed because we went a foot deeper to compensate. So we'll go through that. All I'm saying is to recognize that if the calculations show and Fuss O'Neill agrees that we don't have to rip up the basin and re-hammer the ledge to do it, it can stay, and we don't recognize that $5,000 as an expense.
And you will be providing those calculations?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's all I had, Mimi.
Mr. Moran?
I was just curious if you provided us with the letter from Mass DOT, the June letter. In a couple of the responses to the Fuss and O'Neill, you've said that Mass DOT has dictated one way or another about the basin, for example.
Yes.
Do we have that copy of that letter?
We have their final approval. There was, after the planning board approved it, then it went to Mass Highway, and they had comments, and it took, I think, 3 or 4 plan iterations, and we were working with planning. Every time we submitted it, went back and forth. So there's probably 6 review comments. They're all online, and then when
Well,
they
I
finally
just want to
approved it-
correct James, we did not receive any feedback during the Mass DOT changes. The only thing that we got was the replacement, there was a replacement drainage structure that went from, I'd have to relook at my email, from some proprietary type to another. I don't think we were involved in the Mass DOT change to the trench drain across the driveway. So do you have a letter from Mass DOT that approves that reconfiguration of the drainage?
We do. I don't know if it's a letter or online stuff, but I can get it and package it and send it to you. But it was formal review comments by their engineering team that said, provide this. We did it. There was more comments, and then finally they approved it. I think there was a formal letter, right? Yeah, there was a letter. I can get that to you.
So you'd have to back that, that would have to be part of the stormwater calcs that prove that how the system was built functions for the site.
Correct.
I just want to be clear on that because I don't recall getting something, being involved in the Mass DOT part.
All right, we'll put that package together.
All right, sorry to interrupt.
No, thank
Debbie.
you, Karina. Thank you for also for clarifying. So in the package that you're putting together, are you putting together a modification?
Well, the as-built has the final plan, so what we'll do is we'll take the as-built contours, run the hydrographs from it and say here's all the as-built conditions. The side slopes are a little steeper, it's a little deeper, run them, and then submit that to you.
Okay.
With the PE stamp on it.
Okay, and that sounds okay to you, Karina?
Yeah, at this point, a modification to a major site plan would require that the applicant come back for a major site plan, which is a public hearing, 3.5-week timeframe to notice. And there are particular items in the code that trigger that. which is a reduction in landscape screening, and Mimi can speak to this too, if there's changes to lighting, et cetera. So I'm not sure that it would fully trigger that. The walkway that they're talking about is a walkway around the side of the building, which wouldn't be utilized anymore. And granted, it should have been brought to our attention during construction, and it could have been addressed as just a site change during construction. If you're not moving a roadway or a building more than 10 feet other than what was designed. At this point, I don't think a modification was applicable, and I can be wrong if you think differently, but that these things would be proven as shown, changed in the as-built. They would have to prove that the drainage works. And Fuss and O'Neill, I believe, felt that I don't think they were overly concerned that it wouldn't work, but they wanted evidence for the record, the actual calculations that it does work, so that we would have that on record if there was ever a question. Does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Ms. Braccio?
Thank you. Thank you for getting the response to Fuss and O'Neill's letter so quick. It was extremely helpful to me as I went through my process. I have nothing further to add. That I think the sidewalk was a big issue for me, and then the light, and those have already been addressed. So again, just thank you for taking care of this so quickly,
Great.
responding.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things here that says it's at the discretion of the planning board to approve. And I'm, with Mr. Stein, this should have come back before the planning board to say we're making all these changes instead of just doing whatever you want. And then, 2 days before our meeting, dumping this on us.
I think, yeah, in hindsight, but the planning board closed, Mass Highway kind of took it over. They forced us to meet their requirements. That next step of coming back and saying, this is what Mass Highway required. So and it looks like there was a lot, but they made us move the drive over, and we had to lose a space in the front, so we put it in the back. There was 23 spaces. We only need 9, so it was just such a small thing during construction that was already going on. So I'm not making excuses, but it was kind of a moving target with Mass Highway during construction. But your point is taken. We should have, I guess, put the brakes on and came back and said, we've got to move a parking space. Everything else was pretty much per plan, I think.
Well, everything else that says at planning board discretion, planning board discretion, planning board discretion, all those things we should have known about, so we don't get to this point where the owner wants an occupancy permit and what was approved in the as-built don't match. The lighting I'm concerned about, because your photometric, when the plan was approved, there was no light trespass. So I don't know why if you increase site lighting, it requires a modification. And so how do you have trespass without increasing the lighting?
So the lighting fixture we had to change because that was not in production. They stopped manufacturing that particular fixture. So we had to get a different one. So new photometrics were done with the different fixture.
And do we have the new photometrics?
These are the new photometrics.
We do?
Pardon?
We do? We have the new photometrics?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what Fuss and O'Neill reviewed, I believe.
Awesome. The photometrics you have is from the current with the new fixtures.
So when Fuss and O'Neill reviewed it, they were reviewing the photometrics that said in that corner.
Okay.
Light spillage. So they had the plan.
So the light fixtures themselves were compliant, but the trespassing was happening because, and that's what got picked up.
Wait a
So
second. Marina, the proponent is saying that he submitted a new photometric plan?
Yes, they submitted photometrics in the packet. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and in hard copies weren't received for all the planning board members, but there were PDFs that were provided in the Dropbox. And the overall plan, it was kind of fuzzy to see. So what they did is they also showed zoomed in areas of the photometric plan. And it was in a corner on the Boston Edison side property to the east, that there was some light spill. And then there was one other area to the north where 6 to 8 Turnpike abuts, which is the auto repair facility. But that photometric plan that was submitted with this as-built package reflects the lights that are there now. And the light fixtures are not what was proposed in the approved plan, but the light fixtures, according to Fuss and O'Neill, are compliant, except there is some light trespass. So there may not be shielding on them, and maybe the engineer can speak to that, the shielding. So on the screen here is the photometric plan representing, to my understanding, the fixtures that were installed.
Oh, and that's the one you can't read.
If you zoom in, so if you scroll further down,
Yeah, I couldn't, you can't read it. It
you
gets all
can't read them
blurry.
there, yeah. But if you scroll further down, there is some zoomed in yellowish. Keep going all the way down the end of the document. Keep going. You'll see the site plan again, pieces of the site plan, right here. Okay, so if you look, scroll a little further up, you can see that light trespasses off the property there. You see 0.02, 0.01 along the side. Now, I do want to point out, because I just want the information to be out there, that in the approved photometric plan, the foot candles are taken to tenths. So you'll see a 0.0 on the approved plan. If you look at this plan, it's taken out to the 100th decimal point. So you'll see a 0.01. And if you rounded that, that would be 0.0. If you see one that says 0.05, that would be rounded up to a 0.1. So I don't know if you can follow that, but there are areas that Fuss and O'Neill found where there was some light spillage based on this hundredths. But they also said 1.5 foot candles. And I wasn't able to, I can't recall where that was. If you scroll down a little more on the screen, Colleen, there's more sketches, so keep going. So I don't think that this information was presented clearly enough in the best way. The information is here, but it's not, it's very difficult to see where you are on the site plan, where the property line is. So whoever developed this revised photometric plan probably didn't take care enough to present it in a clear manner so that it would be easy to see where the light spillage was. Go just a few more, Colleen. Just keep scrolling down a little bit more. I just want to show all the representation. See how that's 0.03, 0.03, which is essentially 0.0 if you rounded it. Keep going. All right, you see here, if you stop here along the northern edge there, at the top, I think the property line is where you see the stone wall. It's the second line down, right along there, yeah. Right, and you'll see a 0.75. And correct me if I'm wrong, but
That's Route 9.
that is Route 9?
That's Route 9.
No, that's abutting the parking lot, isn't it? Let me see.
No,
where we're
that's,
at.
if parallel to the top, that's Route 9. That's the main entrance into the site.
Right, but the stone, Oh, right there. Yeah, okay. So that is Route 9, so you are allowed to have spillage onto Route 9. So keep going down the sketches, Colleen. Just want to see. All right, so this is the northwest corner of the site. Again, across the top is Route 9, and on the left is a budding property. Right? So James, is the line with the stone wall that runs vertically here, that's the property line, right?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay, so there you have like a 0.1 candle foot. Keep going, Colleen, just a little bit further. All right, as you move down the side. Yeah, so you can see it's very difficult to see from how this was presented, the level of light trespass. Where is the property line, you know? So, and the other image was too blurry that showed the complete site. So somehow Fuss and O'Neill was able to determine that there was up to 1.5 foot candles at some point. All right, thank you. I just
Thanks.
wanted to
On,
set you concerned.
number 16 on Fuss O'Neill's comments and review of the approved plans, as-built plans and open space boundary change, it appears that the constructed space as shown on the open space boundary plan does not match the approved plans. It should be noted that the planning board has approved this change, and you have noted, has the planning board approved this change?
Yes, they have, they came back, very close to permitting where, there was a kind of a blue overlay of what was approved. And then the
Okay.
planning board signed off on the minor change. So the general overall area was the same, but a couple of the lines, the boundary lines shifted a little bit. But that was approved, and they did supply a stamped plan from the surveyor showing the locations of the boundary markers of the open space that matched that. The revised open space boundary, which had only, it did not shift a large amount, and the actual total area was the same.
So should we discuss whether to approve the changes that it is at the discretion of the planning board to approve this change?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
This is starting to get a little bit fuzzy for me here. So there's so many changes from the approved plans to the as-built that to me, this warrants a modification public hearing. And I understand that the proponent is looking for a temporary CBO. I guess the question is, could we grant them a temporary and yet still have, is it even legally possible for us somehow to grant a temporary CBO, but still compel the proponent to come back for the proper, because this is completely not proper procedure. You guys, you agree with that, right? Okay, so, but we are still, we're economic, advocates here. We appreciate your business. We want to help this, to the best possible outcome for all parties. So what I'm trying to get to is, can we give you guys the temporary and still do the correct modification? Is that possible? No, but I mean, I guess I'm looking for legal advice here. Do we
I'm an
have,
attorney.
you're not an
I don't
attorney,
even play one
but
on
Karina,
TV.
since we are fortunate to have an outstanding town planner who is
Mm-hmm.
present, perhaps Karina could weigh in.
Yeah, let me think about this for a second. So,
Take your time.
when other site plans, when it has been discovered that other properties that have an existing site plan with a major site plan approval, and it's found that after the fact, things have been changed or they've modified something, and they haven't come back for a modification, whether it's the landscape screening or something to that effect. I think that they've been asked to come back for a modification, even though they are occupying. They have their certificate of occupancy for some reason. Well, they have it because they met the requirements for a certificate of occupancy, hopefully at the time. But then after the fact, they went and changed the site. And then if they do that, code enforcement or planning or somebody picks up on it and says, hey, you changed the site, you need to come back for modification.
In effect, it's mitigation.
It's
It's like
mitigation.
long-term, yeah.
Yeah, in this
So-
case, the planning board has more teeth because they're not code enforcement, but because you still have the ability to recommend or not recommend a temp CO or a full CO, you can make a temp CO contingent upon certain conditions.
Yeah.
And those are the things I was mentioning, that they would
And I
have
think
to-
I'm sounding maybe a little, it's late. Planning board's had a rough time lately, guys, so I apologize if I came across as,
I
in any way, anything other than grateful for the fact that the business is in town. So please forgive my initial reaction to this scenario. Having said that, we do have to do things in a way that suits the long-term interest of the town. Does that make sense? Okay.
I think that Jesse, if, like Mimi said, if we did a quick run through, if Colleen could put the comment letter up on the screen and we could do a quick run through of the comments, we'd get an overall better idea of the impacts of what has been modified. And then you can determine if you want to make a modification contingent upon it, if you want to move forward at all. Would that work? It would give the plan, because the information is being, has been circulated so quickly, and we were trying to help the proponent by doing that. We might have to just slow down a minute here and just look at this comment letter from Fuss and O'Neill so that the board has a clear understanding of what is outstanding and what is at the discretion of the planning board in that, and not the bond
Karina,
review. Yeah.
But I have to stop you there. I mean, there was there was a sidewalk on the original plans that isn't on the as-bills. And that's significant enough in and of itself to warrant a modification.
Yeah,
So,
it could, yeah.
no, I don't think we need to go through that line by line right now. I think that
Okay.
where at least I'm at,
Mhm.
and I'm getting the sense that the rest of the board is as well, is that we might entertain looking at a temporary C of O with a bond contingent on the proponent coming back for the proper modification public hearing.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't be adverse to that. I could pass it by town council to make sure.
To be able to move in and operate. And then come
Anything
back.
I can do to open the place up, whatever I have to do to fix it. But right now, I'm losing $70,000 a month. I don't, it doesn't matter, but I cannot proceed with it. And I'm individual, it's not a big company. Whatever has to be done, we'll do it.
In addition, the building commissioner has to still make sure all the building permit, the electrical, HVAC, plumbing, and all that is complete. So, it's not just our site plan, but the proponent also has to, has to address anything that's outstanding there before they get their certificate of occupancy for the building.
Is that already worked out? With the building?
So I think that's a good way forward. Because I agree that there's a lot here and I don't want to miss anything. And I think just to have everything clean, we need to have it modified so we know exactly what the site plan is.
Can I just add one thing just to, I've been doing this a long time and I've worked on different sites. It's been a long process because of COVID and other issues, retrofitting an old building. It's beautiful now, but in hindsight, probably knock it down and build a new one, but we already started, then Mass Highway got involved. I've worked with Raj long enough that these changes weren't to save money or to sneak anything through. The sidewalk was from one door against the building. It was a steep slope. We realized it during construction that it was a dangerous thing. So it was taken out and he spent money inside to work it so they can go inside with signage and elevators and stuff. So nothing was done. The lights weren't available. So we thought it was the same light fixture. And then as Katrina said, you know, we even brought it to the hundreds of photometrics rather than a 10. So we weren't trying to get away with anything. It's just been a long process. So I appreciate the temporary CO effort, but it's not because we're trying to cut corners or do anything sneaky. And those are the two big things. Everything else, other than the Mass Highway change, was very, very minor. They typically wouldn't show up in, not to say any other town, but Southborough with Fuss and O'Neill is very particular, and it was a little eyebrow raising.
Well, I think that with the drainage, the importance of drainage, we consistently try to make sure that's in order. So even with a temporary, if the planning board move forward, we still need the drainage calculations verified by Fuss and O'Neill. We need actual drainage calculation if it moves in that direction. Because drainage is an important factor when there's in New England. As far as, you know, winter time and any icing or puddling or spill off or run off the property.
So the bond surety agreement, updated drainage calculations to prove that the changes work are still acceptable, and a site plan modification.
And a photometric plan. Right? Would the photometric
Would that be part
plan
of the
be part-
modification?
Yes. I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just
And
gotta-
it would be a modification to a major site plan.
Correct.
And would the bond have to include an inflation rate? Or does the planning board and the proponent feel that this could be done in a faster time frame where maybe the inflation is not as much of a concern?
The time, what they're asking the time to get all this done, we're talking months, not years. So the inflation rate is not a big deal.
Inflation's going down.
We'll see.
Many of the details that we have to take care of, so that
Well, part of what's gonna happen is you're gonna have a temporary C of O. And then you're gonna have to come back before us for a public hearing for the modification. And the modification is gonna cover basically all this stuff. Right.
So for instance.
So you're gonna have to basically work with our town planner and the planning department to do that submission.
So what I was saying is, let's say walkway, we know about it, that you guys want walkways and lights. The two things are very obvious.
There's a few things.
So if we can take care of the walkway, not wait for you guys to come back and start the process. Can we do that, you know?
I don't advise that, no.
No, so there were a lot of things here. But, so I would start with the Fuss and O'Neill and all the different changes, and you'd come back before us and say, you know, the sidewalk didn't make any sense, and so we took it out, and that, you know, change would need to be approved.
We're not suggesting that you start any physical mitigations or alterations to the site. We're suggesting that you just work with the planning department to get what you've done approved correctly.
Yeah, except for the drainage, we would need that
Right.
right away. We need the calculations for drainage, because
Thank you.
that's public health and safety.
So,
Colleen, you
okay,
have the bond review up. You don't have the as-built review up on the screen. That's the bond review.
that's all right.
Okay, just wanted, so people know that's the bond review.
So you, okay, on a motion?
And you guys are all right with the $37,000 figure for the bond? Okay.
Correct.
So the motion is to grant a temporary certificate of occupancy.
We would recommend, Jesse, just want to make sure, recommend to the building
Thank you.
commission. Mhm.
Let me back up. This might happen a couple times.
Okay.
The motion is for the planning board to recommend granting a temporary certificate of occupancy to 10 Turnpike Road Storage Facility contingent on surety bond of $37,000.
Is that a cash bond? In other words, it's not a performance bond, it's a check for $37,000 to go into escrow.
Okay, yep, that's in the motion.
With
Also
a surety
subject,
agreement.
Surety agreement.
also subject to approved drainage function calculations. A submission for modification to the site plan with the planning department. That's it.
We got it all, Karina?
Yep, I believe we
Sec-
did. The bond, the
second.
surety agreement, the updated stormwater calculations to prove what's on site works, and an application for modification to major site plan approval, which should happen, right away. Like they should start working on that immediately. I don't know if you want a time frame that says, to apply for a modification within 2 months or within a month and a half or something like that. Because they do have to fix plans and everything and make a submission.
2 months?
I think 2 months. To file.
Submit an application in 2 months, within 2
Yes.
months.
That's fine.
Amend the motion.
As
That's
amended, second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, the discussion for me would be that the length of the temporary that the building department's going to give, is that what is that duration?
Well, typically they're 30 days, but in cases like this, they've been 6 months.
Okay.
It depends on the time of year too and what needs to get done. But
Okay, so I'm going to amend to I think the proper duration would be 6 months, given the contingencies.
yes, and it's just the 2 months was in order, they have to apply for a modification.
Right.
Yeah. So 2 months to apply for a modification and recommending only a 6-month temporary certificate of occupancy to make sure the modification takes place.
I was saying they'll issue the temporary CO, but it'll go for 6 months. So within that 6 months, we make the application go in front of the planning board for the modifications. And then once that's done, then they can change it from a temporary to recommend a permanent.
Second as
Good.
amended.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Muria, yes.
Pressure, yes.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Planners report.
Oh, okay, hold on. Okay, it's not very long. So thank you for the assistance with that one. I'm running into a lot of difficulty with applicants and proponents, as you are aware.
Well, this is the thing. I feel like we're kind of under attack. I mean, we have the EDC constantly saying, why doesn't the planning board, make things easy for businesses? Well, we get into these situations, this is not an uncommon thing. It's a repeating pattern over the last 10 years where we have proponents that do things great, and we have proponents that run into challenges. And it's not even blaming the proponents, it's just the way it goes. But hopefully, you know, people who are advocates for economic development also see the other side of it, that we have to be fair and do things the same way consistently for all the proponents. So that's enough out of me. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And we're trying to make sure everything meets town code as required. So, you know, in working with these applicants, so that's our goal, which we try to hold. So I think we already talked about, the moderators meeting is on the 17th. We just wanted to make sure that, you know, Mimi's going to attend that. And the presentation is, for MBTA is due on the 20th by noon. And I think we're in good shape for that, for the, special town meeting. I want to make you aware of, the National Grid Hazard Tree Removal hearing, which they had initially applied, but was not a complete application. So they've gone back to collaborate with the tree warden designee to make sure that they have a accurate list of trees to be considered that are public shade trees, et cetera. So that'll be pushed out to October. They're revising their application information. So not to worry too much about that at this point. And I think that's it for now. Let's see, one other thing. There is the public hearing for the ZBA for 120 Turnpike. There's an application for a variance for the parking in front of the ZBA, due to the fact that the 40B is impacting the parking. They're at the ZBA looking to have a variance for the amount of parking. But in that application, I just want you to be aware that there's a mention of retail use as well as office use. So it wasn't clear if that application is asking for a second use at that site, because my understanding is the special permit from 2005, I believe, indicates it's an office use for that location. And they are in the works of trying to switch over to some retail on the first floors of 118 and 120 Turnpike. So they're working with the building commissioner and the ZBA on that. But any change of use would come before the planning board, whether it's minor or major. Most of those office spaces will most likely be changed into something that's 2,000 square feet or less, is my understanding. But that could change too. But I just wanted you to be aware of that there is a application in front of the ZBA for 118, 120 Turnpike. And I think it's under 120 Turnpike. So there's always this confusion because there's two buildings there, and sometimes they go in under one name and sometimes they go under the other address. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to call me during the day at the office and I can clarify that for you. And that's it. I think we have we don't have meeting minutes for this evening, right, Colleen?
Nope.
Okay, we do have the draft in hand already, but Colleen is working with Bridget to make any minor revisions before we present those to the planning board.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Hi again, Grant Farrington, 58 Flag Road. Just, I know Karina's mentioned the tree hearing briefly. Just wanted to let you know that one thing that I've noticed is that for the tree hearing that occurred on, I think it was June 18th, the joint select board planning board meeting, the trees that weren't cut, scheduled to be cut down still have their hearing notices up from that date. And then with the current batch, which was supposed to be, I think, next week or something like that, all of those are still up saying that that hearing is going to occur. So obviously, if you still have the next hearing happening in October, then you'd have 3 hearing notices on some of the trees. So I don't know what you guys have the power to do to get DPW to take down the hearing notices, but I think from the public's perspective, it could be confusing, especially, you know, if you're seeing a tree with 3 hearing notices on it. So just wanted to bring that up. Thanks.
Thank you.
Since the posting of the tree is the jurisdiction of the tree warden, which is the select board, what I can do is I'll send an email to Chris Leroy, the tree warden designee, to make him aware that there's multiple postings out there that are, shouldn't be out there anymore. And
In our policy, the tree warden planning board approved policy says if trees aren't being removed, their notices shall be removed from the trees.
okay, yeah, the postings on the most recent application that's not complete was kind of premature. National Grid put them out there and they have they're wrong. So they do have to come down, but I'll make the tree warden designee aware of that. I'll send him an email to point that out.
Thank you. Anything else?
Anybody have the winning Powerball?
No.
Sorry.
I would like to make a motion.
We have a hand raised.
We do. It's says David's iPhone. Be careful.
Hi, guys. This is Dave Ferris speaking. I want to thank you for the thoughtful meeting, and I just wanted to comment quickly. I thought Jesse made a really good point on that last matter relative to developers tend to kind of go astray and make changes. And being a similar developer that recently did a storage facility within a couple of miles, I was really glad to see the board worked with this applicant because I really think it benefits the town's taxpayers to have that temp CO. And it sounded like there's a spirit of cooperation where he's going to meet the minimal light trespass that he's done and lost the parking lot, and the importance of having assessed values move up on a temporary CO is a theme that I've echoed over many meetings. And I really want to push the board to think critically, because I think in my businesses, what I've learned is experience is something you get in life right after you need it. And I think what's happening is you have a lot of very experienced developers and lawyers and engineers coming before you. And frankly, they're coming before a board that is doing good work in terms of trying to, for lack of a better term, fill an unpaid position with a limited amount of training that's happening on the job rather than in the field. So I don't know that there's many board members on today's planning board that have ever built a building, civil planned a building, or legally permitted a building. But when you have that context and experience, you see the position from a much different vantage point. And I want everyone on the planning board to know I've been reaching out and strongly advocating that the problem is not necessarily with the planning board, it's with our town planner not looking out for the town taxpayers' interests. And instead of representing the town's taxpayers, what's happening is our town planner is sort of, for lack of a better term, piling on to applicants who are coming before you. And she's supposed to be the, or he,
So
whoever it is,
David,
is supposed to-
I'm gonna stop you right there. Our town planner follows the town code.
Let me finish,
And
Mimi. I
she's-
have a right to
she's
speak.
very-
It's a public hearing. I have a right to speak.
It is not a
I
public
am making
hearing.
it clear, I'm making it clear that there is a problem in our planning department. And you, as the head of planning, should take necessary action and evaluate the effectiveness of our town planner, who is responsible for representing our taxpayers. You, as the town planning board, are responsible for making sure the laws and the planning is being followed. Our town planner is supposed to look out for our taxpayers. That's not happening.
Mr. Ferris, so we hear your feedback about how the planning board works with proponents.
And I
Planning
thank
board-
you. I really appreciated, Jesse, your comments tonight. I really felt like you listened earlier this year and you made a good effort tonight to helping that applicant. And the guy is a direct competitor to our business. And for me to say thank you to you, that's a big step because that's helping someone who's competing in the same line of business as our neighboring business. But I want Southborough's tax base healthy. And I saw that positive reach out to a proponent tonight, and I'm thanking you. What I'm saying is the person with the most experience in the room should be our town planner that's guiding you on these very sensitive
Mr.
issues.
Ferris, Mr. Ferris, I do have to say that in my experience, I respectfully disagree. And the town planner does work with proponents proactively to seek resolutions when there are challenges.
A town planner should be
planner-
putting out work to bid. I keep hearing Fuss and O'Neill, Fuss and O'Neill. If something's over $10,000, Mr. Stein, our town planner should look out for our taxpayers and the developers in our community and should immediately say, let's spot check this work. What's happening is the planning board's rubber stamping the town planner's recommendations, and good practices are not being followed. And respectfully, I think you guys are trying your best, but you need to be led by somebody who's following the practices of the nearby communities that every developer is working in. We're all working in Northborough, Waltham, Boston. They're all using different practices. The ZBA in your own community is multi-bidding work. Fuss and O'Neill is getting every trade that you guys can give. And what's happening is they're issue spotting and they're leading you guys in a place that's not healthy for our taxpayers' revenue. It's about the taxpayers in our community, right? Like that's what we want. And so we don't want to feed a civil engineer like any job that they want at any price. And our town planner is supposed to help you guys. And that's not happening. And I'm an applicant telling you based on what I just heard, that Fuss and O'Neill issue spotted this guy to death, and he made some mistakes. And I'm glad you stepped in and had the courage to step forward and lead. That's what a chair or a leader of a board does. And I just wanted to say thank you on that issue. And I really feel like what's missing in our community is direct accountability to our town planner, to the select board, and the other taxpayers in the community.
Can I make the motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Okay, moved.
Second.
Oh, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes.
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Mary, yes.
Brascio, yes.